Chapter 126. All of you should know about the mansion in the Green Stone Plaza, right? Nonsense. Who in Tianhuang City doesn't know about that mansion? I heard that the owner of the mansion is not only an elite dozun, but he is also a merchant. The leaders of the various large factions in the city have all been to that mansion. Even the valley chief of the Burning Flame Valley personally paid a visit. Do you know that there is a young ancient void dragon in that mansion? What? Ancient void dragon? The overlord of the magical beast world? At that time, I personally saw an adult ancient void dragon that was at least an 8-star dozun descent. It wanted to take the young ancient void dragon away, but it did not succeed in the end. Guess what? An iron lump flew out of the mansion and crippled the adult ancient void dragon with one punch. Damn, there is such a thing. Intense discussions were taking place in the streets and small alleys of Tianhuang City. At the same time, in the Burning Flame Valley, in an exquisite little house, two young ladies sat at the head of the bed and chatted happily. One of them was wearing a red dress, while the other was wearing a blue dress. This is great. The girl in the blue dress happily jumped up from the bed when she heard that the girl in the red dress had been cured. This is all thanks to Boss Chu. If it were not for the carefree pill in his shop, I would still be tortured every day. Tang Hua Air held the girl in the blue dress arm and curiously asked, Xinlan, why do I feel that you have something on your mind? Have you encountered some difficulties? You saw through me in the end. Yi Xinlan sat back on the bed. An unwillingness gradually surged into her large watery eyes. You should know about the current situation of my Yi family. I'm afraid that we will be removed from the list of the 5 great clans of the Pill Tower this year. In order to solve this problem, the elders in the clan want me to marry that brat from the Chao family. From their point of view, the Chao family is also one of the 5 great clans and is compatible with my Yi family. And Chao Dan is a rare alchemy genius of the Chao clan. As long as I marry him, the Yi clan will be able to avoid the crisis of being one of the 5 great clans, and I can be considered to have found a good family. Anger appeared on Yi Xinlan's face. But do they really think that marrying Chao Dan will solve the crisis? The Chao family is ambitious and has long wanted to erode the Yi family. Marrying me over is just like sending a lamb into a tiger's den. So you escaped? Tang Hua Er's eyes were filled with sympathy. I can only blame myself for my lack of talent in alchemy. Yi Xinlan gradually calmed down and sighed. I think there's someone who can help with your Yi family's crisis. Tang Hua comforted Yi Xinlan while giving her a meaningful glance. When she met Tang Hua's gaze, Yi Xinlan was stunned for a moment before she exclaimed, You're talking about Boss Chu. That's him. Tang Hua nodded. Let's go and find him now. As she spoke, Yi Xinlan pulled Tang Hua's arm impatiently. 2 hours later, Yi Xinlan and Tang Hua arrived in front of the All Heavens shop. Those below the Dozong rank are not allowed to enter? There's such a requirement. Yi Xinlan looked at the words on both sides of the door. Just as she was about to ignore them, a sturdy figure appeared out of thin air in front of the door and blocked their path. I'm here to find Boss Chu. Please make way. Yi Xinlan glanced at the sturdy figure and pointed at the door behind him. The sturdy figure ignored Yi Xinlan. He didn't even look at her. Yi Xinlan frowned as she looked at the sturdy figure in front of her. You're just a gatekeeper. However, before Yi Xinlan could finish her sentence, she felt a terrifying pressure envelop her. Under this pressure, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine as fear surged onto her face. Almost at the same time, Tang Hua reached out and covered Yi Xinlan's mouth. Senior Ancient Dragon, Xinlan doesn't know your identity. Please don't hold it against her. Tang Hua hurriedly bowed to the sturdy figure with a respectful expression. At the same time, she took off her storage ring and said, Although our cultivation is a little weak, we have more than 40 million gold coins on us. We've reached our limit today. Come back tomorrow. He Qing looked down at Tang Hua and said calmly. At this moment, the pressure that enveloped Yi Xinlan quickly dissipated. Hui Yi Xinlan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. She came to Tang Hua's side and quietly pointed at He Qing, who had closed his eyes again. Tang Hua moved closer to Yi Xinlan's ear and whispered into her ear. After knowing He Qing's identity, Yixinlan gulped as her expression changed drastically. Her eyes were filled with shock. Senior Ancient Dragon, my daughter was rude just now. Thank you for not holding it against her. After recovering from her shock, Yixinlan hurriedly bowed to He Qing with a fearful expression. Senior Ancient Dragon, since Boss Chu isn't receiving customers today, we'll come back tomorrow morning. Tang Hor spoke again. But just as they were about to leave, a calm voice came from the mansion. Let them in. Hearing the voice, He Qing opened his eyes and made way for them. Tang Hua and Yixinlan were stunned at first. Then, they looked at each other with joy on their faces. Then, the two women quickly walked into the mansion. In the main hall of the All Heavens shop, Chu Bei sat on the chair. After listening to Yixinlan, he said, So, you want me to help your Yi family solve this crisis? Yes, yes. Yixinlan nodded heavily. Do you understand the principle of teaching a man how to fish is better than giving him a fish? The corners of Chu Bei's mouth carried a smile as he continued, I won't directly help you, but I can let your Yi family overcome this difficulty. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have enough money. Mission announcement. Host receives the 3,000 burning flame. Mission completion reward. 1 use of a level 10 low-grade commodity. Reward 2 million willpower. Fixed point teleportation array. Yi City. At this moment, the system's voice suddenly sounded in Chu Bei's mind. Chu Bei was stunned. He quickly noticed the difference between this mission and the previous one. The previous missions were all transactions, but this time, there was no mention of a transaction. In other words, according to the system's evaluation, the 3,000 burning flame, which had intelligence, did not belong to any person or force. Apart from that, it was the right to use a level 10 commodity. This level of commodity was further divided into 3 grades: high, middle, and low. Boss Chu, what do you want our Yi family to do? Yixinlan's voice sounded in Chu Bei's ears. Chu Bei came back to his senses and looked at Yixinlan indifferently. If there was no mission, he could just get the Yi family to visit them. But since there was a mission, he had to go. Coincidentally, he could obtain the 3,000 burning flame through the Yi family. Of course, he did not know if the system was intentionally helping the Yi family, but the destination of the fixed-point teleportation array was Yi City. Let's go to your Yi family first, Chu Bei said. I'll lead the way. Yixinlan looked excited. There is a wormhole connecting Yi City and Tianhuang City. We can reach there in 10 hours. That's too long. Chu Bei looked at Yixinlan and waved his hand. A purple array pattern appeared under his feet. Come on up, Chu Bei said indifferently. Yixinlan and Tang Hor looked at each other and stepped on the array pattern blankly. Boss, we want to go too. Qing Lin and Little Doctor looked at Chu Bei expectantly. After getting the latter's permission, they also stepped on the array pattern happily. Me too. Little Ziyin landed on Chu Bei. Since you want to follow Ziyin, come on in too. As soon as Chu Bei finished speaking, a void ripple appeared in the hall. Then, He Qing's huge figure appeared on the array pattern. With my strength, if I bring you along, the speed will be faster than the wormhole. If it's the wormhole, it will take 10 hours. I'll take 6 hours at most. He Qing looked at Chu Bei and then at the array pattern under his feet. He seemed to be letting the latter make a choice. Chu Bei smiled and waved his right hand. Suddenly, the array pattern emitted a dazzling light. In the next moment, Yixinlan, Tang Hor, and the other girl's vision quickly distorted and changed. Yi City. When their vision became clear again, Yixinlan was first stunned when she saw the familiar city below. Then, her face was filled with disbelief. Tang Hor, who had been to Yi City before, was also shocked. The most shocked one was He Qing. When he knew that Yi City was below, his eyes widened. He looked at Chu Bei as if he was looking at a demon. It would take a Dozun at least 12 hours to travel from Tianhuang City to Yi City. The wormhole would take 10 hours. His ancient dragon clan's innate ability was the power of space. Even with his strength as an 8-star Dozun, it would take him 6 hours. However, the person in front of him had brought them here in an instant without a sound. He Qing couldn't imagine how the other party did it. Even the Doshing elders in his clan couldn't do it. Lead the way. Chu Bei looked at Yixinlan and said calmly. Yi Xinlan came back to her senses and quickly pointed in a direction. Under Yi Xinlan's guidance, Chu Bei and the others quickly arrived at the Yi mansion. However, when they saw the Yi mansion below, Chu Bei and the others couldn't help but frown. At this moment, the Yi mansion's main door was shattered. The stone statues on both sides had turned into a pile of rubble and rolled around. The guard at the door was covered in blood. He was paralyzed on the ground and didn't move. No one knew if he was dead or alive. I've only left for half a day. What happened? Yi Xinlan's face turned pale as she looked at the dilapidated gate and the guards covered in blood. Yi Xinlan's absent-minded murmur faded as she landed in the mansion at the fastest speed possible. Then, she flew along the main road. Chu Bei and the others followed behind her. How did the Yi family end up like this? Tang Hua muttered to herself as she looked at the fleeing maids. The once glorious aristocratic family of inheritance was now desolate and desolate. Soon, a large hall appeared in everyone's sight. They could vaguely hear angry shouts from within. Yi Xinlan had already arrived outside the hall. When she saw what was happening in the hall, her pretty face turned green. Her graceful body trembled in anger. Looking over, the originally neat and orderly luxurious hall was in a mess. A couple of green-clothed figures were wailing and twitching on the ground. Looking at the Yi word printed on the back of their clothes, they were clearly members of the Yi family. As for the other members of the Yi family who were still standing, each of them had a strong aura. The green-clothed old man who led them still had traces of blood on the corner of his mouth. Opposite the Yi family was a group of black-clothed people who wore mocking expressions. The auras of this group were not weak, especially the two black-clothed old men who led them. Their cultivations were even higher than the green-clothed old man who led the Yi family. They had reached the level of an 8-star dozong. Zhao He, Chinamo, your black fire sect should not go too far. Our Yi family may not be as glorious as it was in the past, but if we were to fight with your black fire sect, you will not be able to do anything. You will not gain anything from it. Within the hall, the green-clothed old man was furious. He coldly stared at the two black-clothed leaders. Yi Zhong, it has already come to this. Don't try to bluff in front of us. The current Yi family, the so-called 5 great families of the Pill region, only exists in name. A black-clothed old man from the Black Fire sect looked at the Yi family leader with a mocking expression. His eyes were filled with disdain. This time around, the two of us have come under the orders of the sect leader to take in your Yi family. If you surrender, our Black Fire sect will not treat you unfairly. This Yi city will still be a place for you to stay. If you don't, I believe you have heard of the methods of our Black Fire sect. The other black-clothed old man from the Black Fire sect opened his mouth. His voice was hoarse. You want our Yi family to surrender to your Black Fire sect? Impossible. Not only the green-clothed old man, but the rest of the Yi family members were also furious. If that's the case, then the gift I brought for you today can be put to good use. A black-clothed old man snorted coldly. Then, under the confused gazes of the Yi family members, black shadows flew out from the storage rings of the two black-clothed old men and landed in the hall. The already messy hall became even more crowded because of these black shadows. When the Yi family members saw the so-called black shadows clearly, their faces turned pale. They were pitch-black coffins. Are you going to lie in there yourselves? Or do you want us to do it ourselves? The two black-clothed old men with sinister expressions smiled at the Yi family members. A cold and majestic aura spread out from their bodies. Under this aura, the Yi family members who were heavily injured and lying on the ground with weaker cultivations could not help but tremble. Yi Zhong, we will give you 3 more minutes to consider. Hand over Yi City, hand over the Sun Fire Ancient Altar, and surrender to our Black Fire sect. Now, the lives of everyone in the Yi family are in your hands. The black-clothed old man's voice became low. It was not difficult to hear the strong threat in his voice. Looking at the coffins in the hall, Yi Zhong hesitated. He was obviously shocked by the Black Fire sect's methods. If he was alone, he would not be afraid of death. However, he was still the head of the Yi family. Gradually, Yi Chang's face was filled with sorrow. The once illustrious Yi family had been reduced to such a pathetic state in his hands. Head, even if we die, We will never surrender to the Black Fire sect. The Yi family members behind Yi Zhong were determined. The 3 minutes are up. The 2 black-clothed old men in cold in the forest finished their words. A bloodthirsty look appeared in their eyes as energy surged in their palms. Chapter 127. You've gone too far. At this moment, Yi Xinlan rushed into the hall. Her eyes were filled with anger as she glared at the people from the Black Fire sect. So Miss Yi is here. I was wondering what would happen if there was an extra coffin when you weren't around. Following Yi Xinlan's cold shout, the people from both factions in the hall cast their gazes over. The 2 black-clothed elders from the Black Fire sect looked at Yi Xinlan with a playful expression. Their expressions were like cats staring at a mouse. Xinlan, why did you come back at this time? The green-clothed elder from the Yi family sighed. Grandfather, our Yi family will be fine. Yi Xinlan glanced at the green-robed elder, then quickly ran back to Chu Bei and knelt down with a thud. Boss Chu, please save the Yi family. As long as the Yi family is fine, Xinlan is willing to serve you for the rest of my life like Qing Lin and the fairy doctor. Yi Xinlan raised her head and stared at Chu Bei sincerely. Her jade-like hands were clenched tightly and her delicate body was trembling slightly. Xinlan, you don't have to do this. Boss won't leave you in the lurch. Qing Lin and the little doctor said, Get up. You don't have to do this for the rest of your life. Chu Bei extended his hand to support Yi Xinlan, who was kneeling in front of him. Then, he took 2 steps forward and swept his gaze across the people from the Black Fire sect. All of you, leave. Don't come back again. If you're late, you won't be able to leave. Within the large hall, Chu Bei's voice, which was so calm that it did not stir even the slightest ripple, slowly spread like water. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the people from the Yi family and the Black Fire sect were all stunned as they stared at Chu Bei in a daze. Crazy. Not an ordinary kind of crazy. Damn, where did this idiot come from? Is there something wrong with his brain? Doesn't he know who we are? The people from the Black Fire sect came to their senses and looked at Chu Bei as if they were looking at an idiot. The 2 black-clothed old men named Zhao He and Qinimo were stunned for a moment. Then, their expressions turned sinister as they looked at Chu Bei. Their eyes were filled with bloodlust. Chop this brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth into minced meat, a black-clothed old man ordered. Hearing this, the black-clothed people behind the old man, who had long been unable to restrain themselves, instantly pounced toward Chu Bei's group. Each of their eyes carried a ferocious expression as powerful dou qi violently surged out from their bodies. Chu Bei's expression did not change in the slightest as he looked at the many Black Fire sect experts who were charging towards him. He merely tilted his head to look at He Qing and said indifferently, Kill them. With that, Chu Bei took a step back. He Qing was taken aback. Obviously, he had thought that Chu Bei would take action himself. Who would have thought that he would be the one to do it? Although He Qing was extremely reluctant, when he thought of little Ziyin, he still became a hired thug. Boom. Before the experts from the Black Fire sect could pounce in front of Chu Bei, an invisible energy surged out from He Qing's body. With a buzzing sound, the experts from the Black Fire sect flew backwards and violently smashed into the wall. Surprise flashed across the eyes of the 2 black-clothed old men as they watched their subordinates fly backwards. The disdain on their faces disappeared. The 2 black-clothed old men communicated with their eyes when they met He Qing's ice-cold gaze. Their feet suddenly stomped, and they rushed toward He Qing at the same time. He Qing was expressionless as he looked at the 2 black-clothed old men rushing over. He randomly waved his right arm. Immediately, the empty space appeared to have been violently mixed by an invisible large hand, revealing many spatial folds. Almost at the same time, a vast and frightening strength quietly cut through the space like floodwaters and violently struck the chests of the 2 black-clothed people. Grug! The invisible spatial strength attacked, and the bodies of the 2 black-clothed old men suddenly stiffened. The seriousness on their faces instantly turned into shock. Before they could do anything, 2 mouthfuls of fresh blood, mixed with some shattered internal organs, were spat out from their mouths. Bang! Fresh blood was spat out. The 2 black-clothed old men were like kites with their strings cut as they flew backwards like their subordinates from earlier. after which they heavily smashed onto the ground. One could vaguely hear the clear sound of their bones being broken. The faces of everyone from the Yi clan were instantly filled with shock when they saw this scene. All of them were stunned as they stared at He Qing. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not dare to imagine that this person in front of them could easily seriously injure two 8-star elite Do Zongs with just a random wave of his hand. The two black-clothed old men, who were originally arrogant and bossy, did not have the ability to resist at all. Dozun, high class. Yi Zhong was stunned as he looked at He Qing. Although not the slightest aura had seeped out from the latter's body, Yi Zhong could still vaguely sense an extremely dangerous feeling. This kind of feeling was something that he had once sensed. However, those who gave him such a feeling were all powerful existences who had stepped into the Dozun class. How can such an existence be related to Xinlan? Yi Zhong looked at Yi Xinlan in confusion as he muttered in his mouth. Ever since the Yi clan was defeated, there were no longer any elite Dozuns who came into contact with them. Otherwise, this Black Fire sect would not dare to act so fearlessly. Very quickly, Yi Zhong and the other members of the Yi clan seemed to have thought of something. Their gazes once again landed on Chu Bei. Just what kind of status did a person who could order a high-class Dozun to do something have? Elder, the two of us are elders of the Black Fire sect. Earlier, we were blind and ended up offending you. Please forgive us. The two black-clothed old men stood up in a miserable manner. Only fear remained in their eyes when they looked at He Qing. After just one exchange, they knew that the person in front of them was not someone they could offend. After all, spatial strength was the mark of an elite Dozun. How should we deal with them? He Qing looked at Chu Bei. We have already given them a chance. Chu Bei's gaze swept over the two black-clothed old men. His face was expressionless. I understand, He Qing replied and nodded. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the two black-clothed old men's expressions changed instantly, following which, their figures flashed without hesitation and they were about to fly out of the hall. However, before the two black-clothed old men could fly out of the hall, the space around them seemed to have been imprisoned, following which, it quickly shrank and distorted. Under this huge force, the two black-clothed old men could not even let out a scream before they disappeared into the black hole. You can deal with the remaining underlings yourselves. He Qing seemed to be too lazy to attack again. After looking at Yi Zhong, he looked at the remaining Black Fire sect elites who were severely injured. Leave none alive. Yi Zhong's eyes were fierce. After giving the order, he took the lead and charged forward. In less than half an hour, the sounds of battle in the hall disappeared and peace was restored. Only corpses were left on the ground. Clean this up, Yi Zhong instructed a few of the younger generation. Then, he led the elders of the clan and walked quickly to He Qing. Thank you, honored sir, for your help. Yi Zhong took the lead and bowed towards He Qing. His eyes were filled with gratitude. Don't thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Boss Chu. I did him a favor. As he said this, He Qing glanced at Chu Bei. He deliberately emphasized the word favor. Thank you, Boss Chu. Yi Zhong and the rest turned and bowed towards Chu Bei. However, when they called out Boss Chu, there was an obvious hint of confusion on their faces. Grandfather, I specially invited Boss Chu to solve the Yi family's crisis. Yi Xinlan moved closer to Chu Bei's ear. She glanced at Chu Bei and said something. When Yi Xinlan finished speaking, Yi Zhong looked at Chu Bei with more respect. With Boss Chu, we can still maintain our position as one of the 5 great families without the Chao family. Yi Xinlan shook Yi Zhong's arm. That's why I don't want to marry that guy. I'll listen to you. Grandfather will send someone to propose to the Chao family. Yi Zhong patted Yi Xinlan's head. Then, he turned and gave an order to an elder. After that, the elder quickly left the hall. Tell me the details. Chu Bei took his time to find a chair and sat down. He spoke plainly. Boss Chu, it's actually not that difficult to maintain our position as one of the 5 great families. It's just that the current Yi family can't meet the requirements. Yi Zhong stood respectfully beside Chu Bei and sighed. There are 5 great families in Dan City. Back then, the leaders of the 5 great families were the core members of the Dan Tower. Due to their special status, they enjoyed the rich resources of the Dan Tower. The people in the family could easily occupy the position of an elder in the Dan Tower. Although there are many benefits to being one of the 5 great families, the Dan Tower will also conduct an assessment for the 5 great families every 10 years. Only those who pass the assessment can continue to enjoy the resources of the 5 great families. This assessment must be for the younger generation. Chu Bei looked at Yi Xinlan. Yi Cheng nodded and sighed. Among the Yi family members of this generation, Xinlan's talent is already considered good, but she's only at the level of a level 5 alchemist. As for those in the family who've broken through to level 6, they're no longer qualified to participate in the assessment. The Yi family did not pass the previous 2 assessments. If we don't pass this time, we'll be kicked out of the 5 great families. Naturally, I'll lose my position as an elder in the Dan Tower. As for the younger generation of a family, whether they pass the assessment depends on their age. At Xinlan's age, she'll probably only pass the assessment if she can make a level 6 intermediate pill. Hearing Yi Cheng's words, Yi Xinlan's face showed a hint of shame. She was not even close to reaching level 6, much less level 6. If we fail this assessment, those families who've been eyeing the Yi family's position will probably rush to take it. Yi Cheng sighed. Boss Chu, please help the Yi family survive this crisis. As long as the Yi family is safe, Xinlan is willing to do anything for you. Just then, Yi Xinlan quickly knelt before Chu Bei. Why are you kneeling again? Chu Bei waved his sleeve, and a gentle force lifted Xinlan up. He shook his head helplessly. When will the assessment begin? Chu Bei asked. 2 days later. Yi Cheng's expression was solemn as he asked tentatively, Is there still time? Yes, Chu Bei replied. Hearing this, Yi Xinlan was overjoyed. But soon, she seemed to have thought of something, and she frowned. Mr. Chu, there might be some big shots from the Pill Tower at the exam. Their strength is unfathomable. Will they recognize your real age? Besides, the examinee must be one of the younger generation of the Yi family. We'll have to arrange a suitable identity for you. Chu Bei was surprised to hear Yi Xinlan's words. It took him a while to understand what she meant. What I meant was to help you pass the test, not me. Chu Bei glanced at Yi Xinlan and said, What? Me? Yi Xinlan's eyes were filled with surprise. But I'm only a level 5 intermediate, and there's only 2 days left. To improve your alchemy skills, there are only 4 ways to improve. First, cultivation. Second, soul power. Third, experience. Fourth, fire for alchemy. Chu Bei stood up from his chair and looked calmly at Yi Xinlan. Prepare 400 million tomorrow and another 400 million the day after tomorrow. There's enough time. As long as we can maintain our position as one of the 5 great families, 800 million is nothing. Yi Cheng's eyes were determined. Chapter 128. The next day, early morning. Back in the main hall, Yi Cheng took off the storage ring in his hand and passed it to Chu Bei. Inside the ring was about 70% of the Yi family's liquid assets. Let's begin. After informing Yi Cheng and Yi Xinlan of what to do next, Chu Bei waved his sleeve and 4 roulette wheels of fortune appeared, one for increasing one's cultivation, soul power, experience, and pill refining flames. Ding! The roulette wheels spun at the same time. As time went by, Yi Xinlan's cultivation, soul power, and alchemy experience increased steadily, but the roulette wheel for alchemy flame did not yield anything. Rumble. Just then, a commotion came from outside the hall. A Yi family disciple ran into the hall in a panic. Master, the Chao family is here. The Yi family disciple quickly reported to Yi Cheng. Yi Cheng frowned and walked out of the hall. Boss Chu, let's go have a look. Yi Xinlan stopped spinning and quickly followed behind Yi Cheng. The Chao family was also one of the 5 families of the Pill Pagoda. However, unlike the Yi family, the Chao family did not decline in the past few decades. Instead, their alchemy talent grew with each generation. At the moment, the atmosphere in the Yi mansion square was tense. At a glance, the huge square seemed to have been split into 2 distinct camps by a giant sword. On one side was the Yi family, and on the other side was the Chao family in their light red robes. Against the Yi family, the Chao family who barged in gave off an overbearing vibe. The Chao family's group was led by a young man in a purple alchemist's robe. There was a light blue badge on his robes. There was a pagoda on the badge, and there were 6 dazzling purple gold rings and 3 smaller red stars on the pagoda. A level 6 alchemist and a badge from the Pill Pagoda. Beside the young man was an old man in a gray robe. The old man in gray robe had wrinkles all over his face. He looked like he was about to die, but the majestic aura he exuded made the Han family's hearts palpitate. "Where is Yichong? Tell him to come out and see me." The young man from the Chow family roared. "How dare you? How can the name of our Yi family's patriarch be casually used by a junior like you?" The faces of the Yi family's members were incomparably ugly. "Do you really think you're still the Yi family of the past? You're merely occupying the resources of the 5 great clans." The young man snorted coldly, and his words carried a hint of arrogance. "Chowdan, why did you come here in such a big way? Are you here to denounce us?" Hearing Chowdan's voice, the Yi family members quickly opened up a path for him. "Yichong, my marriage with Xian Lan was approved by you. Now, you're telling me that the marriage is off. Are you making fun of my Chow family?" Chowdan glared at Yichong angrily, as if he did not care who the other was. "Chowdan, this concerns my marriage." Yizhong ignored the mocking words and the mocking gazes from all directions. He knew that these factions were all waiting for the Yi family to fail again. In this way, the fallen Yi clan could be considered to have given them an extremely good position. "Boss Chu, look at those directions. The Dan family, Chow family, Bai family, and Chiu family are at the front." Yi Zhong led Chu Bei to the Yi family's seats and pointed to the 4 directions. Chu Bei looked in the direction Yi Zhong pointed and nodded slightly. 15 minutes later, in the center of the hall, the ground shook slowly, and a white-haired old man appeared on the stage. This old man is called Shang Yao, one of the 8 great elders of the Pill Tower. He's also a grade 8 intermediate alchemist. Yi Zhong introduced the white-haired old man to Chu Bei as soon as he appeared. "Since all the 5 great families are here, then I'll get straight to the point. The test is the same as the previous years. Every family will choose one person from the younger generation, and will decide the grade of the pill according to their age. Those who pass the test will have 2 spots to head to the star field and try to subdue the mysterious flame." The white-haired old man looked in Yi Zhong's direction when he spoke up to hear. "Since the Yi family has failed the previous 2 tests, if you fail again this time, then you will be removed from the 5 great families and won't enjoy the Pill Tower's special resources and privileges. The test will start with the Chow family." A young man from the Chow family's seat leaped onto the stage when the white-haired old man finished speaking. The young man was Chow Dan, who trespassed into the Yi family's residence 2 days ago. The white-haired old man glanced indifferently at the young man and said, "Chow family's Chow Dan, 20 years old. You need to refine a grade 6 advanced pill." "Understood." Chow Dan bowed to the white-haired old man and began to refine the pill on the stage. His movements were skillful, and his face was full of confidence. 2 hours later, a rich fragrance wafted through the air and filled the entire hall. A light purple pill appeared in Chow Dan's palm. "Purple pill, grade 6 advanced pill. Chow Dan from the Chow family has passed the test." Chow Dan looked at the Yi family members with pride when he heard the white-haired old man's announcement. In the next 4 hours, the Dan family, the Bai family, and the Chiu family passed the test one after another. "Yi family's representative, please come to the stage." As the white-haired old man's voice sounded on the stage, the Yi family's seat became the focus of everyone's attention again. Everyone looked like they were watching a show. "Boss Chu, I'm going up." Yi Xinlan ignored the mocking gazes around her. She saluted to Chu Bei with her fists and walked onto the stage confidently. "Yi Xinlan from the Yi family, 18 years old. You need to refine a grade 6 intermediate pill." The white-haired old man looked at Yi Xinlan and said calmly. Like the others, Yi Xinlan bowed to the white-haired old man and walked to the furnace. Under Yi Xinlan's manipulation, medicinal herbs were thrown into the medicine furnace one by one. In less than 10 minutes, a third of the herbs on the table were gone. As time passed, fewer and fewer people questioned Yi Xinlan. This was because Yi Xinlan's alchemy technique, the time interval between tossing in the herbs, and her control of the fire had reached a level that made them gasp in amazement. This gave them the illusion that the person refining on the stage was not Yi Xinlan from the Yi clan, but an old monster from the pill tower who had refined pills for most of his life. Even the white-haired elder on the high stand was completely stunned. His expression was as if he had seen a monster. Gradually, the herbs on the table became fewer and fewer until they all disappeared. The tricolored flame burned fiercely in the medicine furnace. As the flame burned, one could faintly see the shape of a pill. A faint pill fragrance spread from it. Under the scorching of the tricolored flame, the pill prototype gradually became round. After another hour, Yi Xinlan flicked her finger, and the lid of the medicine cauldron flew away. A red and purple rainbow burst out from the medicine cauldron and landed firmly in Yi Xinlan's hand. Almost at the same time, a strong pill fragrance that made people feel refreshed wafted out and filled the entire hall. The pill is done. It is really done. What kind of pill is that? Seeing the purple and red pill in Yi Xinlan's hand, everyone in the stand stood up from their chairs. Soul-stabilizing pill. On the high stand, the white-haired elder recognized the pill in Yi Xinlan's hand. What? This is the soul-stabilizing pill. Hearing the name of the elixir from the white-haired old man's mouth, everyone in the stands looked at each other in dismay. Their faces were filled with extreme shock. Although they had never seen the soul-stabilizing pill, they had heard of it. As the name suggested, this pill was very beneficial to those with damaged souls. It was an advanced level 7 pill. Elder, please take a look. Yi Xinlan stepped forward and handed the soul-stabilizing pill to the white-haired elder. The white-haired elder took the soul-stabilizing pill and studied it carefully. The more he looked, the more shocked he was. Elder, if you like it, can you announce the result? Yi Xinlan asked. Hearing that, the white-haired elder came back to his senses. He glanced at everyone in the hall and said in a strong voice, Yi Xinlan from the Yi clan has refined the advanced level 7 pill, the soul-stabilizing pill. She has passed this year's assessment. The Yi clan's position as one of the 5 great clans will remain. They will continue to be protected by the pill tower and enjoy the privileges of the 5 great clans. At this point, the white-haired elder looked at Yi Zhong and said, Brother Yi, congratulations. Hearing the white-haired elder's words, Yi Zhong let out a long sigh. His expression became very relaxed, as if the heavy stone that had been pressing on his heart had finally been lifted. The Yi clan elders behind him also could not help but cheer excitedly. Elder Yao, there must be something wrong with the Yi clan's assessment. At this moment, Chaodan from the Chao clan stood up from his seat and pointed at Yi Xinlan. Yi Xinlan from the Yi clan. We have witnessed her refining process. There is no problem at all. Do you mean that there is something wrong with my appraisal? The white-haired elder's eyes focused and his face became gloomy. It has only been 2 days. How did Yi Xinlan go from a Do Wang to a Do Zong? How could she go from a level 5 alchemist to a level 7 alchemist? How can there be nothing fishy about this? Chao Dan from the Chao clan continued. Yi Xinlan glanced at Chao Dan indifferently and said coldly, Maybe the heavens are looking after my Yi clan. I have received a great opportunity in these 2 days. As for what the opportunity is, I have no comment. Opportunity? Haha, who would believe such words? Chao Dan let out a cold laugh. Little brat from the Chao clan, this is not a place for you to mess around. The white-haired elder was clearly furious. A terrifying aura erupted. The truth is right in front of you. If you continue to pester endlessly, don't blame me for not giving your Chao clan any face. Chao Dan was about to say something when he heard the white-haired elder's words. However, before he could open his mouth, he was stopped by a Chao clan elder. Gather at the Pill Tower in 6 hours. The 3 elders in the tower will open the star regions for you. Each clan will have 2 spots. After the white-haired elder's powerful voice sounded, his body disappeared into thin air. Many factions left the large hall after the assessment ended. In less than 2 hours, the news of the assessment had spread throughout the entire Pill City. The assessment of the 5 large clans is out. Do you know about it? Quickly tell us. Did the Yi clan pass this time? It is rumored that the Yi clan will be kicked out of the 5 large clans if they did not pass. Under normal circumstances, the Yi clan should have been eliminated this time. Stop keeping us in suspense. What happened? However, the Yi clan's assessment this time around was not normal. Yi Xinlan from the Yi clan actually refined the high-grade Tier 7 soul-stabilizing pill. What? High-grade Tier 7? How is this possible? Let's not talk about the harsh requirements of refining a Tier 7 medicinal pill. Just the cultivation alone would require one to at least enter the Dozong realm. However, according to what I know, Yi Xinlan is only a Do Wang. Could your information be wrong? When I first heard this news, my thoughts were the same as yours. However, the truth is as such. At that time, everyone in the large hall witnessed the entire process with their own eyes. Yi Xinlan's cultivation has indeed entered the Dozong realm. I heard that she had obtained a great opportunity during these 2 days. If this is true, the Yi clan will not be able to maintain its position as one of the 5 large clans. Discussions broke out all over the large streets and inside and outside Pill City. As the news spread, many factions in the city began to rush to the Pill Tower. The opening of the Star Regions after the 5 large clans assessment was a grand occasion in Pill City. This was because the 3000 Burning Flame, which was ranked 9th on the Heavenly Flame ranking, was present in the Star Regions. During the opening of the Star Regions in the past, the 3 great heads of the Pill Tower would use a secret technique to project the scene within the Star Regions to the sky above the Pill Tower square. Hence, many factions could use this opportunity to witness the glory of the 3000 Burning Flame. Of course, they did not think that any of the 10 people from the 5 large clans would be able to subdue the 3000 Burning Flame. After all, the 3000 Burning Flame was an existence that even the upper echelons of the Pill Tower were unable to subdue. The reason why these younger generation members were allowed to enter was merely a gimmick. Gradually, the square of the Pill Tower became a boiling cauldron of voices. At a glance, it was filled with a black mass of human figures that filled every corner of the square. The people from the 5 large clans were all present in the middle of the square. The people from the 5 large clans who are about to enter the Star Regions should ascend the stage first. Shang Yao floated in the air. His powerful voice spread throughout the square. Quickly look. The 2 spots from the Bai clan have been given to the Bai siblings. It definitely belongs to the 2 of them. Bai Tao is a Tier 6 high-grade alchemist while Bai Ying has stepped into the Tier 7 ranks. When the 2 figures from the Bai clan leaped onto the stage, the square was filled with discussions. The young man called Bai Ying had a rather handsome appearance. There was a trace of gentleness between his brows. However, this gentleness was obviously directed at the white-clothed young lady beside him. After the Bai clan, 2 people from the Dan clan stepped onto the stage. This also caused a commotion in the surroundings. These 2 people were called Dan Xian and Dan Bai. They were the 2 most talented people among the younger generation of the Bai clan. After them, 2 people from the Qiu clan stepped onto the stage. They were called Qiu He and Qiu Luo. They were a pair of twin brothers. Although they were only Tier 6 high-grade alchemists, they had once refined a Tier 7 pill together. When the 2 people from the Qiao clan stepped onto the stage, the atmosphere in the square was clearly much more lively. This was not because of Qiao Dan, but because of the black-clothed young lady beside him. The black-clothed young lady had a slender body and a cold and arrogant temperament. Her fine black hair casually draped over her waist. Her slightly thin face was exceptionally delicate. The young lady was called Chaoing. She was publicly recognized as the most talented person among the younger generation of the 5 large clans. She was well known in the entire Pill City and was also the capital of the Qiao clan to show off to the outside world. She was not even 21 years old, but she was already a Tier 7 middle-grade alchemist. Other than that, she also had another identity. She was the direct disciple of one of the 3 giants of the Pill Tower. Chu Bei glanced at the 8 people from the 4 large clans who had already stepped onto the stage. Among the 8 people, only Qiao Dan from the Qiao clan had participated in the assessment of the 5 large clans. The other 7 people did not participate. When Yi Xinlan and Chu Bei stepped onto the stage, the commotion below the stage became even louder. The commotion reached its peak in an instant. After all, Yi Xinlan, who had gone through the assessment, had now become the focus of the entire Pill City's discussion. Even the 8 people from the 4 large clans, including Chaoing, looked at Yixinlan and sized her up again. Of course, there were also some discussions about Chu Bei and guessing his identity. Buzz buzz. Not long after the people from the 5 large clans stepped onto the stage, a buzzing sound came from above the pill tower. Then, 3 voices walked out from the ripples. The leader was an old man in white. There was no aura around him at all. His hair and beard were all white, and his face was covered with deep wrinkles. His eyes looked a little thin under the pressure of the wrinkles. At first glance, the old man in white looked like an ordinary old man. However, the way he stood in the void proved that he was not ordinary. On both sides of the old man in white, there was a beautiful woman in a purple robe and a dark-skinned old man. When the 3 people appeared, the people from the pill tower, including Shang Yao, bowed to them one after another. The 3 people were known as the 3 giants of the pill tower: Xin Kongzi, Xin Yi, and Tian Lazy. Little girl Yi, I've also heard about the test. This old man is actually very interested in your opportunity. When you come out of the star region, I wonder if you can tell me about it. Of course, if you are not willing, I will not force you. Xin Kongzi looked at Yixinlan. There was a gentle smile in his eyes that were as unfathomable as a deep pool. Yixinlan was obviously nervous when she met Xin Kongzi's gaze. She bit her lips and nodded involuntarily. Xin Kongzi's gaze moved away from Yixinlan and swept across the 10 people on the stage. Since you are all ready, we will open the star region in a while. As we need to maintain the stability of the star region, we cannot enter. Elder Sheng Yao will lead the team. After Xin Kongzi finished speaking, Tian Lazy added, although your goal is the 3,000 burning flame, if you can't get it, don't force it. Treat this as an experience. Obviously, in Tian Lazy's opinion, it was impossible for these 10 people to subdue the 3,000 burning flame. After repeatedly reminding them, Xin Kongzi, Xin Yi, and Tian Lazy looked at each other. They formed a seal at the same time and quickly changed it. Vast soul fluctuations spread out from their bodies. In just a moment, the void in front of the pill tower fluctuated violently under everyone's shocked gazes. Then, a light silver spatial door appeared. Chapter 130. Follow me in. Shang Yao's gaze swept over the 10 people on the stage. After his voice sounded, he took the lead and flew through the large silver door. Yixinlan, Chaoying, and the rest of the 10 hurriedly followed. Following the spatial fluctuation, 11 figures flew through the large silver door one after another. When the large silver door closed, a projection appeared in the empty space in front of the 3 great heads of the pill tower. The projection displayed the scene in the star field that Shang Yao's group was in. Is this the star field? The temperature is indeed much higher than the outside world. The Bai siblings observed their surroundings. The moment they entered the star field, they sensed a wave of hot air blowing toward them. All of you must follow me closely. Do not leave the group. There are empty cracks in this star field. All of you will bear the consequences of entering by mistake. Elder Sheng Yao was at the front. After his somewhat deep voice sounded, he took the lead and flew in a certain direction. Chao Ying, Yixinlan, and the rest nodded and responded in unison before following closely behind Shang Yao. Due to the continuous flight, the temperature of the surrounding space also increased. At the beginning, they could still accept it. However, after flying for 15 minutes, all of them had no choice but to summon the Do Qi within their bodies to resist the unbearable high temperature. Shang Yao stopped flying when the temperature in the air reached a level where even summoning Do Qi would cause them to feel hot. The 3,000 burning flame is in front. After flying for a short distance, a blazing light suddenly appeared in the distant void. As the distance increased, the object within the blazing light gradually appeared in everyone's line of sight. At the same time, the expressions of those who had never seen the 3,000 burning flame on the square of the pill tower instantly became dull when they saw this scene through the projection in the air. Their throats rolled as they involuntarily swallowed their saliva. Is that the 3,000 burning flame? Its shape is actually that of a huge dragon. It is even more spectacular than I imagined. On the square, everyone's eyes were filled with utter shock. They saw an incomparably huge dragon within the glaring light. The huge dragon's eyes were tightly shut. Its body was coiled up, and there was a strange purple-black flame lingering over its huge body. As the flame rose, the surrounding space became distorted. The huge dragon coiled in the vast star field. The purple-black flame seeped out of its body and burned fiercely. Even Elder Shangyao, who had led many teams, could not help but feel his emotions fluctuate when he saw such a scene. At a closer look, the surface of every dragon scale on the dragon's body was covered with black lines that looked like spider silk. These black lines intertwined with each other to form extremely mysterious runes. The dragon scales were connected, and these runes were like an incomparably huge black net that completely enveloped the dragon. Clearly, this was the seal the Pill Tower's head had placed on the 3,000 burning flame. Is this the deviant flame they want us to try to subdue? The White Eagle siblings, Dan Xian, Dan Bai, and the others looked at each other in dismay. Compared to the giant dragon in front of them, they were like ants, and an inexplicable feeling of insignificance arose in their hearts. Even though the dragon was in a deep slumber at the moment, the dragon might that it exuded when it breathed still gave people the urge to prostrate and worship it. Elder Shengyao, are you sure this thing can be subdued? The two from the Qiu family pointed at the dragon and looked at Shang Yao at the same time. This size was simply too shocking. Don't worry, I'm just taking you through the process while it's asleep. Don't tell me you really want to subdue this thing? Elder Shang Yao said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he looked at the White Eagle siblings of the Bai family. Let's start with your Bai family. As soon as Elder Shang Yao's voice fell, everyone's gazes gathered on the White Eagle siblings. Don't be afraid. It has already been sealed by the president and the other two. Just do as they taught you, and nothing will happen. Seeing the White Eagle siblings hesitate, Elder Shang Yao opened his mouth to speak. Bai Tao, wait for me here. I'll go and try first. Hearing Elder Shang Yao's words, the White Eagle gave Bai Tao a look, then took a deep breath. Under the gazes of the others, he slowly walked toward the sleeping dragon in front of him. The closer he got to the giant dragon, the more intimidating the dragon's might was. The White Eagle's expression also became more vigilant and solemn. Arriving in front of the giant dragon, the White Eagle flew up until he hovered in front of the giant dragon's head. Facing the giant dragon at such a close distance, the White Eagle let out a long breath and tried his best to remain calm. Then, the White Eagle stretched out his right hand and slowly placed it on the centermost dragon scale on the giant dragon's forehead. Just as the White Eagle injected a wisp of soul energy into the dragon's scale, his body trembled slightly. Then, he closed his eyes and concentrated, as if he was communicating with the giant dragon. Bang! About 3 minutes later, the White Eagle opened his eyes. The White Eagle's body seemed to have been blasted away by an invisible force, and he was forced to take several steps back. Is this considered a failure? Of course. That's a strange flame with intelligence. How could it be subdued so easily? In the outside world, the people who witnessed this scene in the Pill Tower's plaza began to discuss, "Brother, are you all right?" In the star field, the White Eagle had just flown back to Bai Tao's side when the latter asked with a worried expression, "I'm fine. It's just a failure." The White Eagle shook his head. His words seemed to contain a sense of defeat. "Let's go next." Elder Shang Yao's voice was calm as if this result was completely within his expectations. After he finished speaking, he gave the White Eagle a look that said, "Don't be discouraged, everyone is the same." The second person to try was Bai Tao. Her steps were the same as the White Eagle's. The result was the same. In less than 3 minutes, she was blasted back by the invisible force. After the Bai family, the Dan family went up. After witnessing the White Eagle siblings' failure, Dan Xian and Dan Bai seemed particularly relaxed. The final result was also expected. It ended in failure. Soon, the Qiu family went up and lost. Chao Dan went up and lost. Chowing went up and lasted the longest, as long as 5 minutes. However, she still failed. "Yi Xinlan, it's your turn." Elder Shang Yao looked at Yi Xinlan and said calmly. At the same time, the people in the Pill Tower's plaza also had looks of anticipation. Of course, they did not have any hope that Yi Xinlan would be able to subdue the 3,000 burning flame. Instead, They wanted to know how long she could last. After all, judging from the previous 8 people, the longer one could last, the stronger one's alchemy skills would be. Up until now, Chowing from the Chow family had lasted the longest, as long as 5 minutes. As the focus of today's event, Yi Xinlan had successfully refined the high-grade 7 soul stabilizing pill. Naturally, they were curious about who was stronger between her and Chao Ying. However, after hearing Elder Sheng Yao's words, Yi Xinlan did not immediately move. Instead, she looked at Chu Bei beside her. Boss Chu, isn't the purpose of your trip the 3,000 burning flame? Is there a need for me to make a move? Yi Xinlan asked through her divine consciousness. Go. I don't mind waiting a few more minutes. Chu Bei nodded slightly at Yi Xinlan with a smile on his face. If you can really subdue it, then consider it your opportunity. After hearing Chu Bei's words, Yi Xinlan nodded and then flew to the front of the giant dragon's head. After Yi Xinlan placed her palm on the dragon scale at the center of the dragon's head, she slowly closed her eyes. As soon as she closed her eyes, a wisp of soul power carefully flowed along her arm and entered the dragon's scale. In the next moment, Yi Xinlan felt as if she had appeared in a strange place of nothingness. At a glance, this place of nothingness was filled with purple-black flames. In the center of the flames, there was a mini-dragon that looked similar to a giant dragon but was countless times smaller. At this moment, this mini-dragon was coiled up with its eyes closed, as if it was still sleeping. Is this the heavenly flame origin that Elder Sheng Yao mentioned? Looking at the mini-dragon, Yi Xinlan took a deep breath and controlled her soul power to float toward the mini-dragon. Then, she slowly wrapped it around the latter's body. At the same time, she continuously sent friendly messages to the mini-dragon. It's useless. Looking at the indifferent mini-dragon and feeling the strange energy that began to surge around her, Yi Xinlan sighed. She knew that this strange energy was the invisible energy that had pushed back the previous 8 people. It had only been 6 minutes since her soul had entered. However, just as the invisible energy was about to hit her, Lil Dragon, who had his eyes closed all this time, suddenly opened his eyes. The invisible energy disappeared, and Yi Xinlan's soul continued to exist in this place of nothingness. Looking into the mini-dragon's cold dragon eyes that were filled with purple-black flames, Yi Xinlan inexplicably shuddered and goosebumps rose all over her body. Your soul has the sense that I like, and there are 3 of them. However, they seem to be a little weak. They are not the main body, but just a branch of the main body. The mini-dragon stared coldly at Yi Xinlan and spoke in human language. Even so, I still want to eat you. Listening to the mini-dragon's cold words, Yi Xinlan was stunned at first, but she quickly reacted. The sense that it liked were the tricolored flames that she had obtained from Boss Chu. According to Boss Chu, this tricolored flame was formed by the fusion of 3 heavenly flames. Just as Yi Xinlan was about to communicate with the mini-dragon, the latter did not give her a chance. It opened its mouth and spat out a purple-black flame. In an instant, the purple-black flame engulfed Yi Xinlan's soul consciousness. Almost at the same time, Yi Xinlan opened her eyes in the star field. However, compared to the previous 8 people, she was not pushed back by the invisible energy. Instead, she landed in front of Chu Bei. 7 minutes. Yi Xinlan actually lasted for 7 minutes. Could it be that her alchemy skills are better than Chao Ying's? Everyone in the Pill Pagoda Square exclaimed. This time, Xin Kongzi, Xin Yi, and Tian Lazy's expressions changed. There was a hint of surprise in their eyes because they knew that there was only one situation where they would not be pushed back by the invisible energy. Elder Sheng Yao, I also failed. Yi Xinlan bowed to Elder Sheng Yao. Elder Sheng Yao looked at Yi Xinlan in shock and stammered. You communicated with the 3,000 burning flames origin? Chapter 131. Hearing Elder Sheng Yao's words, by Ying and his sister, Chao Dan, Chao Ying, and the rest all focused their attention on Yi Xinlan. They had all seen the mini-dragon, but no matter how they tried to wake it up, it was still in a deep sleep. Therefore, when they learned that Yi Xinlan had woken up the mini-dragon, they were all shocked. As for Chu Bei, he was still very calm as if he had already guessed the reason. Yi Xinlan nodded. It has indeed woken up, but it woke up on its own. As soon as it woke up, it swallowed my soul. Is it because of the tricolored flame? Elder Shang Yao reacted when he thought of the tricolored flame that Yi Xinlan had used to refine the soul-stabilizing pill. It should be. Yi Xinlan pretended to be ambiguous. Rumble. Just as Elder Shang Yao wanted to ask something else, the huge dragon's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Its body moved slightly, and the entire void shook and roared. Suddenly, a terrifying dragon's aura spread out. Retreat. Elder Shang Yao immediately ordered when he sensed that the 3,000 burning flame had woken up. Yi Xinlan, Chaoying, and the rest immediately retreated and maintained a certain distance from the huge dragon. I've slept for too long. It's time to move my body. The huge dragon opened its huge mouth and locked its gaze on Yi Xinlan. However, just as it moved, the runes on the dragon's scales all over its body released a strange light at the same time. This damned seal. Under the light of these runes, the huge dragon's body could only sway slightly. Since it has woken up, let's end it here today. Elder Shang Yao looked at the 3,000 burning flame and said indifferently, Elder, there is still one person from our Yi family who hasn't made a move yet. Yi Xinlan quickly spoke up. Elder Shang Yao looked at Chu Bei and pointed at the 3,000 burning flame. It has already woken up. It's too risky to approach it. You can leave this opportunity for the future. When Chu Bei met Elder Shang Yao's gaze, he was just about to speak when a crack appeared in the void on the right side of the 3,000 burning flames. Subsequently, a large amount of black fog gushed out of the crack. A figure slowly walked out of the black fog. Seeing the black figure's attire, Chu Bei swallowed the words he was about to say, and a playful expression appeared on his face. Look, who is that? In the outside world, the crowd in the plaza also noticed the black figure that had suddenly appeared beside the 3,000 burning flames through the screen, and cried out in alarm, It's him, Soul Palace's old Mugu. How could he appear in the Pill Tower's star field? Could it be that he's here for the 3,000 burning flames? When the thick fog around the black shadow gradually dissipated and revealed its appearance, some of the powerhouses in the square who recognized the black shadow were even more shocked. The expressions of Xian Kongzi, Xian Yi, and Tian Lazy changed at the same time when the black shadow appeared. However, just as they changed their hand seals and prepared to reopen the silver door, a thin layer of black light suddenly lit up the entire star field that the silver door was connected to. Damn it! They tampered with the star field. It looks like this Soul Palace planned this long ago. The expressions of Xian Kongzi and the other two turned grave. They continued to form hand seals while paying attention to the star field in the screen. Old Man Yao, if you let them do this, they will never be able to subdue the 3,000 burning flames. The black shadow that appeared out of nowhere let out a strange laugh. This was a skinny, hunchbacked old man. His hair and beard were white, and his most striking feature was the scar at the corner of his eyebrows. Mugu, why are you here? Elder Shang Yao clearly recognized the black shadow. When he saw the other party appear, his expression instantly turned grave. Is it strange for my Soul Palace to appear here? The corners of old Mugu's mouth curled up in a sinister smile. Soul Palace. Upon hearing this word from old Mugu's mouth, aside from Chu Bei, the expressions of Yi Xinlan, Chaoying, and the others changed drastically. You barged into my Pill Tower's territory. Are you not afraid that Lord Guildmaster will keep you here forever? Elder Shang Yao coldly stared at old Mugu and let out a cold snort. Do you think that only the people from your Pill Tower can enter this star field? You did not reveal yourselves earlier because you were not prepared. Now, everything is ready. If they could enter, you would not be the only one speaking to me here. Old Mugu's words were filled with pride. Even with their strength, they would need at least 6 hours to enter. By then, I would have already left. After old Mugu finished speaking, he pointed at the vaguely visible layer of black light in the surrounding empty space. What exactly are you trying to do? Elder Shang Yao glanced at the tricks that the Soul Palace had done, and his expression became increasingly grave. What else is here besides the 3,000 burning flames? Why do you think I am here? Old Mugu smiled as he looked at the huge dragon on the left. Even if Lord Guild Master cannot enter, with me here, it will not be that easy for you to obtain the 3,000 burning flames. Elder Sheng Yao's eyes hardened. Old Mugu did not care about Elder Sheng Yao's rising aura. He pointed at Yixinlan, Chao Ying, and the others. Putting aside the fact that my cultivation is 1 star higher than yours, if we really fight, I want to kill those little fellows behind you. I'm afraid that you will not be able to protect them. Hearing Old Mugu's threatening words, Chao Ying, Bai Ying, and the others subconsciously retreated. Elder Sheng Yao's expression became even gloomier. In the end, he withdrew his aura. This is the correct choice. Old Mugu became increasingly proud. I do not have much time. You all can just watch from the side. Once I subdue the 3,000 burning flames, I will leave. After Old Mugu finished speaking, he no longer paid any attention to Elder Sheng Yao. Instead, he quickly flew in front of the huge dragon. Then, his hands began to form a series of dazzling hand seals. As his hand seals moved, countless strange black runes appeared out of thin air in the surrounding void. Each rune carried a subtle energy fluctuation. Under Old Mugu's control, these densely packed black runes surged toward the huge dragon. To be more precise, each black rune chose a dragon scale. The instant these black runes seeped into the dragon scale, they immediately merged with the runes used by the Pill Tower's great leader to seal it. Boom! The huge dragon seemed to have sensed the loosening of the seal. A trace of excitement flashed through its huge eyes. It let out a deafening dragon roar that contained a dragon's might. Almost at the same time, the purplish-black flames on the huge dragon's body suddenly soared. They were like heaven-burning flames that started to envelop this empty space. Gradually, the seal on the huge dragon's body became fainter and fainter, and the range of its movements increased. In the outside world, in the Pill Tower's plaza, if this continues, I'm afraid that the seal on the 3,000 burning flames will really be broken. Xian Kong Zi, Xian Yi, and Tian Lei Zi's expressions became increasingly grave. Their hand seals sped up. While maintaining the stability of the star field, they continuously strengthened the seal on the 3,000 burning flames. In the star field, the 3,000 burning flames seemed to have sensed that Xian Kong Zi and the others were strengthening the seal. A monstrous fury surged in its huge eyes. Another dragon roar resounded. The 3,000 burning flames swung its huge tail, erupting with a destructive aura. In the next moment, under the shocked gazes of Elder Sheng Yao, Yixinlan, and the others, the purplish-black flames on the huge dragon's body quickly split into thousands of black fire droplets. These fire droplets seemed to have been condensed. Each droplet contained a terrifying energy. In the end, these black fire droplets were the same as the Hall of Soul's black runes. They each found a dragon scale and attached themselves to it. Chi. The addition of the black fire droplets seemed to increase the power of the Hall of Soul's runes. The originally deadlocked situation instantly tilted. The seal runes made by the Pill Tower's higher-ups were disintegrating at a speed visible to the naked eye. Xian Kongzi, once I break the seal, I will definitely make your Pill Tower pay a disastrous price. As the seal runes on its body decreased, the energy fluctuations emitted by the 3,000 burning flames became even more terrifying. Chapter 132. In the star domain, the 3,000 burning flame looked at Old Mugu with disdain. Although it did not have a great understanding of the Hall of Souls, it knew that the other party had helped it break the seal in order to obtain its origin flame. A heavenly flame that has gained intelligence is indeed different. How cunning. Old Mugu's expression turned completely gloomy. However, do you think that you will not need to follow me to the Soul Hall just because you have gone back on your word? The expressions of Elder Sheng Yao, Chao Ying, and the others not far away improved when they heard the conversation between the 3,000 burning flame and Old Mugu. Although the 3,000 burning flame had broken the seal, from the looks of the current situation, the other party was not willing to submit to the Soul Hall. Since you have gone back on your word, do not blame this old man. Old Mugu's tone had become unusually dense. Do you think that you can subdue me with just you? The 3,000 burning flame swung its enormous dragon head and threw a palm with its enormous mouth. Black flames lingered around it. The pill tower cannot do anything to you. But do you think that my soul hall cannot do anything to you? Once I bring you back to the soul hall, this old man will let you know what it means to live a life worse than death. However, old Mugu's words had just sounded when an enormous black figure tore through space above his head. It was accompanied by a terrifyingly hot wind pressure as it ruthlessly slammed toward his head. A black figure also appeared above Elder Shengyao, Yixinlan, and the others. It was a sharp claw with flames lingering around it. The 3,000 burning flame attacked without any hesitation. It swung its tail at old Mugu and its claw at Elder Shengyao's group. Faced with this sudden attack, both old Mugu and Elder Shengyao did not choose to fight head-on. Instead, they quickly dodged. This was especially the case for the former. After dodging the 3,000 burning flames dragon tail, he flipped his hand, and a bright silver jade tablet appeared in his palm. Then, he applied some force. Crack! The moment the jade tablet shattered, a large amount of black fog surged out of the hole from earlier. 3 figures wrapped in black robes slowly walked out of the black fog. As expected, this animal still refuses to cooperate obediently. After the 3 figures appeared from the black fog, 3 vast auras suddenly swept through the empty space like a storm. The appearance of the 3 figures in the Pill Towers Plaza in the outside world stirred a great commotion. Another 3 people have come? Old Mugu invited them. Looks like they are honorable elders from the Soul Hall. The powerful cultivators of the Pill City, who had their eyes fixed on the screen, were even more shocked. Are these Soul Palace fellows already so impudent? Now you don't even put my Pill Pagoda in your eyes. The expressions of Xian Kong Zi, Xian Yi, and Tian Lei Zi became even more unsightly. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't enter the star field, they would have killed the people from Soul Palace on the spot. As for the 5 great clans, the Bai, Dan, Qiu, and Chao clans all had anxious and worried expressions on their faces. At this moment, the most outstanding members of their clan's younger generation were all in the star field. Not only did they have to face the 3,000 burning flames that had broken through the seal, they also had to face the 4 venerated experts of the Hall of Souls. There was the risk of dying at any moment. Only the members of the Yi family were slightly calmer. In their opinion, Yi Xinlan would be fine with the mysterious boss Chu by her side. Mugu, you've really made ample preparations this time. Elder Shang Yao's frown deepened as he glanced at the 3 figures. None of these 3 people who had just appeared were weaker than Mugu in terms of aura. Clearly, they were venerated elders who possessed extremely high positions in the Hall of Souls. Forget about an ordinary first-rate faction in the Central Plains. Even the famous 3 Valley Square Pavilion would not be able to take out 4 Dozuns. Even the 3,000 burning flames' enormous eyes had an additional solemnness at this moment. Boss Chu, Yi Xinlan subconsciously leaned toward Chu Bei. She was just about to open her mouth to say something when she was interrupted by the other party's gaze. That gaze told her that there was no need to be impatient. The 3 of you, there is not much time left. Once those 3 old fellows from the Pill Pagoda can enter, we will likely not be able to leave. Old Mugu glanced at the 3 venerated elders who had been summoned and spoke in a faint voice. Hall leader does indeed place great importance on this plan. In that case, let's begin. One of the venerated elders spoke. Old Mugu's expression changed slightly when he heard the words Hall leader. His eyes revealed some fear. The next moment, old Mugu and the other 3 venerated elders let out a cold cry at the same time. Soon after, the 4 figures split into 4 different directions and flashed apart, surrounding the enormous 3,000 burning flame. 10,000 soul devouring formation. Cries sounded once again. A strange black fog surged out from the bodies of the 4 people in all directions and swiftly spread. In an instant, the temperature of this space plummeted due to the appearance of the strange black fog. It became unusually dark and cold. One could vaguely see many translucent souls drifting within the black fog. Their mouths emitted ear-piercing, miserable cries. The strange black fog first isolated the surrounding star strength. Soon after, it began to slowly approach the 3,000 burning flame. All of you humans deserve to die. Killing intent surged in the eyes of the 3,000 burning flame when it sensed the energy ripple within the black fog. It had just regained its freedom. Naturally, it was unwilling to be sealed again. The 3,000 burning flame opened its enormous mouth amid a soul-stirring dragon roar. Purple-black flames shot out of its mouth like pillars of fire toward the 4 venerated elders of the Hall of Souls. Wherever the flames passed, the surrounding space distorted and caved in. Sizzling sounds could be heard. Faced with the crazy counterattack of the 3,000 burning flame, Mugu and the other 3 venerated elders' faces sank. The speed at which they formed hand seals increased. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, the sound of metal colliding rang out from within the black fog. Then, over 1,000 black chains, each half a meter thick, shot out from the black fog and penetrated through the fire pillars. Then, like giant pythons, they continuously intertwined on the body of the 3,000 burning flame until they completely wrapped around it. I'm going to kill all of you humans. The 3,000 burning flame's expression turned sinister. Its enormous body twisted frantically in an attempt to break free of the black chains that pierced its body. At the same time, purple-black flames surged out of its body endlessly, burning the chains and the surging black fog in the surroundings. Under the burning of the pitch-black flames, the first to suffer were the translucent souls. They struggled instinctively in pain and gradually turned into nothingness. Evil creature, we underestimated you. Looking at the pitch-black chains that were beginning to crack, Mugu and the other 3 venerated elders looked at each other. After communicating with their eyes, a large amount of black fog surged out from behind them once again. Within the black fog, a large number of souls shrieked miserably as they frantically pounced toward the 3,000 burning flame. As these large numbers of souls poured in, the cracks on the pitch-black chains began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Is this the reason why the Hall of Souls collects souls? Their methods are truly too cruel. Thousands upon thousands of souls charged into the sea of flames in a suicidal manner like moths to a flame. Although the soul power that erupted from them successfully repaired the chains, their bodies were quickly burned into nothingness by the pitch-black flames. Witnessing this scene, the faces of Chao Ying, Bai Ying, Yixinlan and the others were ashen. Their gazes were filled with anger as they looked at the 4 venerated elders of the Hall of Souls. When these souls were alive, they had been killed by the people of the Hall of Souls using extremely cruel methods. After their deaths, their souls were used as cannon fodder. However, it had to be said that although the methods of the 4 venerated elders of the Hall of Souls were extremely vicious, the results were indeed quite good. As time passed, the 3,000 burning flames' aura gradually became weaker. It will not be able to last much longer. Put in more effort. Mugu and the other 3 revealed joyous expressions as they sensed the weakening aura of the 3,000 burning flame. Sacrifice the life-soul lock. Just as the voice of a Hall of Souls venerated elder sounded, for chains that were 100 feet thick surged out from behind them. The size of the 4 chains was so large that it left one speechless. The surface of the chains was covered in strange symbols. At a closer look, one would see that the symbols were surrounded by countless faces that were filled with mournful expressions. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Once these 4 chains appeared, the 3,000 burning flame that was still struggling clearly became terrified. The life-soul lock of 4 venerated elders. That 3,000 burning flame will not be able to last much longer. Elder Sheng Yao sighed. The life-soul lock was the final trump card of the Hall of Souls venerated elders. This was because the life-soul lock was connected to their souls. Once it was damaged, they would also suffer extremely serious injuries. Hence, the Hall of Souls venerated elders would not use it until the very last moment. Although it was very risky, its might was far from what an ordinary chain could compare to. It was extremely frightening. Form the life-soul lock formation. After the life-soul lock was sacrificed, Mugu and the other 3 changed their hand seals. Immediately, The four incomparably large black chains that resembled flood dragons pierced through the 3,000 burning flames' enormous body with earth-shaking miserable screeches. In practically an instant, the 3,000 burning flames' enormous body that was originally struggling calmed down. Clearly, this life-soul lock formation was even stronger than the 10,000 souls devouring formation from before. Evil creature, do you regret it now? Old Mugu snorted coldly. Gradually, under the suppression of the life-soul lock formation, the 3,000 burning flames' enormous body began to shrink at a visible speed. However, the killing intent in its enormous eyes did not decrease. Instead, it increased as it looked at Mugu. Its ferocious mouth wished that it could bite the other party into pieces. Why are you still keeping these people from the Pill Tower? The three venerated elders from the Hall of Souls looked at Mugu. Weren't you afraid that he would cause trouble back then? Since the 3,000 burning flame is being suppressed now, it is time to deal with them. After saying that, old Mugu looked at Sheng Yao's group. Outside, Pill Tower Plaza. The 3,000 burning flame is being suppressed. What are the Hall of Souls people doing now? Are they preparing to attack the Pill Tower's people? Are they going to shed all pretenses of cordiality with the Pill Tower? The Hall of Souls has never done things properly. This is especially true recently. Unexpectedly, they do not even care about the Pill Tower now. The experts from Pill City watched Mugu's group of four walk toward Sheng Yao's group through the screen. Murderous intent began to surface on the faces of Xian Kongzi, Xian Yi, and Tian Lazy in the sky. At the same time, they communicated with their eyes, as if they were thinking of countermeasures. Association leader, please save those little fellows. The Bai clan, Dan clan, Chiu clan, and Chao clan. The people from the four great clans could no longer suppress the anxiety in their hearts. They bowed to Xian Kongzi's group of three, pleading with their words. The expressions of Yi Zhong and the other upper echelon members of the Yi clan also turned grave. Their gazes were fixed on the figure beside Yi Xinlan, who had not said anything since the beginning. Mugu, you despicable person. How dare you go back on your words? In the star domain, Elder Shang Yao clenched his fists tightly as he stared coldly at old Mugu. Old man Yao, you have already lived for so long. How can you still be so naive? By entering your Pill Tower's star domain, I have already formed a grudge with you. Since that is the case, why not kill you and weaken your Pill Tower's strength at the same time? Old Mugu let out a cold laugh. Elder Shang Yao's face sank when he heard old Mugu's words. He turned to look at Chaoing and the others. All of you withdraw quickly. Chaoing, Bai Ying, and the others exchanged glances when they heard this. After coming to a mutual decision, they turned around and flew into the distance. With their strength, they would not be of any help if they remained here. Instead, they would become a burden to Elder Shang Yao. They are just a group of the younger generation. If I let them escape under my watch, won't I become a joke to the other old fellows when I return? A Hall of Souls venerated elder let out a cold snort. He waved his sleeve, and a spatial storm suddenly appeared where Chao Ying's group fled. Under the pressure of this terrifying spatial storm, Chao Ying's group had no choice but to retreat. At this moment, old Mugu had already started fighting with Elder Shang Yao. The moment the two attacked, they both used killing moves. Two terrifying auras surged in the air. The shock waves from the battle tore a large hole in space. You actually dare to split your attention and pay attention to those little fellows below while fighting with me? Old Mugu pushed back Elder Sheng Yao with a palm strike and immediately followed up. Sensing the increasingly sharp might from old Mugu's palm, Sheng Yao no longer dared to split his attention. He focused on dealing with old Mugu with all his strength. Little fellows, you are all the best of the Pill Tower's younger generation. Perhaps if you were given another 100 years, you would all become the Pill Tower's huge arms. A Hall of Souls venerated elder looked at Chao Ying's group expressionlessly. Then, he suddenly changed his tone. With such talent, I really cannot bear to kill you here. Why don't you follow me back to Soul Hall and work for Soul Hall? My Soul Hall's resources far surpass the Pill Tower's. Your future accomplishments will only be greater. Even if we die, We will not betray our family or the Pill Tower. By Ying, Dan Xian, and the others did not waver when they heard the words of the Hall of Souls' venerated elder. Since this is the case, we can only kill all of you on the spot. The voice of that Hall of Souls' venerated elder suddenly sank. Soon after, one could see him waving his right hand. A cluster of black fog surged out of his palm. It swiftly transformed into a large black palm that tore through space and appeared above Bai Ying, Chao Ying, and the others. The eyes of Bai Ying, Chao Ying, and the others suddenly shrank when they saw the large palm slamming down. Just as they were prepared to use all their strength to join hands and block this large black palm, they suddenly discovered that the do qi within their bodies had been suppressed by the surging energy ripple within the black fog. Even moving had become incomparably difficult. The gap between them and an elite do zun was too great. It was so great that they did not have the ability to resist. Damn it! A rich dissatisfaction rose in the eyes of Bai Ying, Chao Ying, and the others as they sensed the pressuring aura above them. Most of it was hatred for the Hall of Souls. Chapter 133. Elder Sheng Yao, who was engaged in an intense battle with old Mu Gu, also sensed the danger Chao Ying's group was in. Unfortunately, old Mu Gu's cultivation was above his. He was unable to escape. Bai Ying, Dan Bai, and the others, who were in a desperate situation, exchanged glances with each other. At this moment, the fear on their faces had suddenly disappeared. It was as though they had been relieved. However, just as they were prepared to welcome death and saw that the enormous black palm was about to strike them, an unknown icy cold feeling swept over their bodies. Soon after, a thin layer of ice strangely appeared above their heads. Bang! The enormous, dark black palm carried spatial strength. It carried a frightening might as it violently slammed into the layer of ice, creating a soul-stirring sound. The layer of ice might appear to be less than an inch thick, but it had received the frightening, dark black palm. Moreover, it did not show the slightest crack. What is going on with this layer of ice? Chao Ying, Bai Ying, and the others were initially stunned as they looked at the layer of ice that had suddenly appeared above their heads and blocked the enormous, dark black palm for them. After which, they were stunned. Their faces were filled with shock. The thing that they found difficult to imagine was that such a thin layer of ice was actually able to block the frightening palm of a do zun from the Hall of Souls. Who is it that saved us? Could it be Elder Sheng Yao? But according to what I know, he does not practice ice do qi. That's not right. This layer of ice does not have any do qi ripples. There is an energy ripple that we have never come into contact with. Bai Ying, Dan Bai, and the others immediately looked at Elder Sheng Yao's battlefield. However, they discovered that the other party was still engaged in an intense battle with old Mu Gu. He did not have the time to care about them. Elder Sheng Yao, who was on the battlefield, did not understand the reason. His face was filled with confusion, but he immediately exhaled a long breath of relief when he noticed that the danger of Bai Ying's group had been resolved. At the same time, the people in the outside world, who had been paying attention to the situation in the star region, where did that layer of ice come from? Could it be that there are other elite do zuns from the Pill Tower hidden in the star region? The experts on the square of the Pill Tower faced each other. Clearly, they did not understand where the layer of ice above Chao Ying's group had come from. Quickly look at that person from the Yi clan. At this moment, a sharp-eyed expert exclaimed as he pointed at the figure beside Yi Xinlan in the image. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that the fingertips of the figure's right hand were covered with a thin layer of ice, which was emitting cold air. If one did not look carefully, it would not be easy to notice. Could it be that he was the one who did it? But who is this person? How come I've never seen it before? Yes, I also find it unfamiliar. When everyone saw Chu Bei's appearance, they all frowned. Previously, their attention had been focused on Chao Ying, Dan Xian, and Yi Xinlan. They had not paid much attention to this unfamiliar face. In the sky, Xian Kongzi, Xian Yi, and Tian Lazy also noticed Chu Bei, and a wisp of surprise flashed through their eyes. Who is he? Then, the three of them looked at the Yi family's patriarch, Yi Zhong, at the same time with questioning gazes. Hearing Xian Kongzi's voice, the gazes of the four great families and the other experts in the square all turned toward the Yi family. Meeting Xian Kongzi's questioning gaze, Yizhong hesitated for a moment before taking a step forward and saying, "I don't know Boss Chu's exact background. I only know that he is an omnipotent businessman. Xinlan's fortuitous encounter over the past 2 days was all thanks to him." What? So it was he who allowed Yi Xinlan's cultivation and soul power to soar and allowed her to possess the three-colored flame. I just didn't expect that he could even buy alchemy experience. There's actually such a mysterious existence in this world. After learning some information about Chu Bei from Yizhong, everyone in the square was stunned and started discussing once again. Then what is his cultivation? What is his purpose in entering the star domain? Xian Kongzi frowned slightly as he stared intently at Yizhong. "President, I don't know his exact strength, but I can be sure that he is at least a dozun." At this point, Yizhong paused for a moment before continuing. "As for his purpose, it should be the 3,000 burning flame." Hearing this, Xian Kongzi, Xian Yi, and Tian Lei looked at each other before looking at Chu Bei's figure on the screen. If the other party could resolve the crisis in the star domain, it would be better for him to obtain the 3,000 burning flame than for it to fall into the hands of Soul Hall. Immediately, the three of them even began to pray that Chu Bei's strength was above the 3 dozuns of Soul Hall. Even if it was not enough, it could at least delay them until they broke through Soul Hall's trick in the star domain. In the star domain, the Soul Hall dozun who attacked Chaoying, Yi Xinlan, and the others frowned when he saw that his attack was blocked. He turned his head and swept his gaze around. After failing to find anything, he waved his right hand once again. 6 chains surged out from his back and intertwined to form a huge fist. Compared to the huge pitch-black palm from before, the huge chain fist did not attack Yi Xinlan and the others from above. Instead, it blasted out directly. Seeing the huge fist arrive in front of them in an instant, Chao Ying, Dan Bai, and the others' hearts froze. However, before danger descended, the layer of ice above their heads suddenly shattered. Countless ice shards intertwined to form an ice spear that pierced through the void and met the huge chain fist. Boom! The ice spear and the huge chain fist collided. The moment the huge sound rang out, the latter was quickly enveloped by the chill of the ice spear. As if it had been assimilated, ice crystals appeared from the inside out. Gotcha! Following this, a crisp sound rang out as the huge chain fist shattered inch by inch. After destroying the huge fist, the ice spear continued forward, targeting the Soul Hall dozun who attacked. How is this possible? Seeing the ice spear arrive in front of him, the Soul Hall dozun hurriedly distorted the void in front of him in an attempt to shatter the ice spear. However, a terrifying spatial force surged in the Soul Hall dozun's palm. The void in front of him caved in and distorted, but the ice spear was not damaged at all. Chi! The ice spear pierced through the Soul Hall dozun. In the next moment, the Soul Hall dozun's miserable shriek rang out in this space. Looking over, a round hole had appeared in the Soul Hall dozun's chest. Fresh blood flowed out. It was a ghastly sight. Due to the layer of ice from before and the fact that Chu Bei's actions were not concealed at all. This time, regardless of whether it was Chaoying, Bai Ying's group, Shang Yao and Mu Gu who were fighting intensely, or the Soul Palace revered elder who had suffered the ultimate blow, or the other 2 revered elders, everyone present saw the person who had attacked. At this moment, everyone's gaze was focused on Chu Bei. Aside from Yi Xinlan, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. It's you. Bai Ying and his sister, who were beside Chu Bei, could not help but gulp. Their brains seemed to have lost the ability to think as they stood there like wooden blocks, staring blankly at Chu Bei. "You saved us just now? Who exactly are you?" Chao Ying and Chao Din stared at Chu Bei somewhat numbly as they sucked in a breath of cold air. Their faces were at a loss, as if they had been struck by lightning. They looked like wooden statues. When Dan Bai, Dan Xian, and the other members of the 5 great clans learned that Chu Bei was the one who attacked, their faces instantly turned ashen. This had happened too suddenly and unexpectedly, catching them off guard. They originally thought that the one who saved them was a pill tower Do Zun hidden in the star field. Unexpectedly, it was someone who had been traveling with them from the very beginning. Old Yao, I did not expect you to hide such an existence on this trip. Fortunately, I made sufficient preparations. Otherwise, I might really have to stay here. Old Mugu glanced at Chu Bei before looking at Elder Sheng Yao. Elder Sheng Yao's shocked gaze shifted away from Chu Bei. His originally grave expression relaxed. Although he did not know Chu Bei's origins, it seemed that he was on the same side as him. With the help of an expert in such a predicament, the pressure on them would be greatly reduced. You should not be someone from the Pill Tower, right? After the heavily injured Hall of Souls' honorable elder's aura stabilized, he cautiously looked at Chu Bei. His entire body was as tense as a rock, and his heart was so heavy that it felt like it was filled with lead. After the short exchange just now, he was certain that the other party's strength was above his. No matter what we do, there should be a first-come, first-served rule. Chu Bei ignored the shocked gazes of the surrounding people. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the three honorable elders from Hall of Souls with ridicule. Under his feet, the remaining root of the frost fruit that had eaten the flesh of the devil fruit floated. The ice fruit that he had pawned this time was developed to a degree that was completely based on the development of General Qingji in One Piece's plane. It was also one of the stronger one-time use products among the 9th level products. In terms of strength, it could fight against a peak 9-star Do Zun, or even a Ban Sheng. You are also here for the 3,000 burning flame. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the faces of the three honorable elders from Hall of Souls immediately turned dark and cold. They immediately dispelled any thoughts of roping in Chu Bei. Attack together. After speaking, the three honorable elders from Hall of Souls, including the heavily injured honorable elder, shifted their positions. They each took a position and surrounded Chu Bei in a triangular formation. After the three honorable elders took their positions, they quickly formed a seal with their hands. A buzzing sound immediately rang out in this space. With the three of them working together, this space was sealed. Soul-devouring blade. Immediately after, the three honorable elders let out a shout and a black fog surged out from behind them. Within the black fog, a black figure gradually solidified. Compared to the soul-devouring blade that Chu Bei had seen Wu Qian use before, the soul-devouring blade of the three honorable elders in front of him was even more impactful. The black curved blades were actually 100 feet long. The three enormous black curved blades were formed from tens of thousands of iron chains intertwined with each other, and they were covered in dense and mysterious runes. Die! Accompanied by the shouts of the three honorable elders from Hall of Souls, the three enormous black curved blades shot towards Chu Bei. You don't need to do this. Feeling the sealed space around him, Chu Bei knowingly smiled. Facing the attacks of the three honorable elders from Hall of Souls, he had never thought of dodging. With a smile in his voice, Chu Bei spread out his palms and a large amount of cold air surged out of his body. In the next moment, with Chu Bei as the center, wherever the cold air spread, everything seemed to be frozen solid. Chapter 134. Chi Chi Chi. The 3,000 feet long soul-devouring blades of the three Hall of Souls slowed when they reached the range of the cold air. Soon after, the symbols on the curved blades began to freeze and break apart. They only lasted for a moment before a cracking sound appeared. The entire curved blade was covered by ice crystals and shattered into pieces. The bone-piercing chill continued to spread. It seemed to have purposely circled around Yixinlan's group. Only that area was not covered by the cold air. In an instant, the entire star region was no longer dark. It was as though it had entered an ice age. Bang! The three Hall of Souls Do Chi circulated their Do Chi immediately and shattered the ice crystals on the surface of their bodies. However, before they could launch another attack, three sharp ice spears had already formed in front of Chu Bei. Shio! In an instant, the three ice spears arrived in front of the three Hall of Souls elders. The expressions of the three Hall of Souls elders changed drastically as they looked at the ice spears that did not contain any Do Chi ripples but contained another kind of strange energy. This was especially the case for the elder who had been pierced once earlier. Some fear surfaced on his face. Soul shield. The three elders of the Soul Palace shouted at the same time. After their shouts, thousands upon thousands of departed souls surged out from behind them. They quickly gathered in front of them and formed a wall of departed souls to block the ice spear with chilliness in front of them. However, these dead souls were like moths to a flame in front of the ice spears. They disappeared even faster than the 3,000 burning flame. However, compared to being burned by the 3,000 burning flame, these dead souls being frozen by the cold air at the tip of the spears was more of a relief. There was not much pain. Regardless of how many dead souls there were, they only managed to slow down the piercing speed of the ice spears. This kind of slowing was negligible. The bone-piercing chill destroyed the dead souls. The three ice spears pierced through the three Hall of Souls elders at the same time. Snowflakes blossomed at the tip of the spears as the fresh blood of the three Hall of Souls elders flowed. The next moment, a miserable cry was emitted from the mouths of the three Hall of Souls elders. So strong. Chao Ying, Bai Ying, and the others inhaled a deep breath of air as they looked at the painful expressions of the three Hall of Souls elders. They were startled as they looked at Chu Bei. Xinlan, who exactly is he? Dan Xian looked at Yi Xinlan and involuntarily asked. Hearing Dan Xian's question, everyone's gaze shifted to Yi Xinlan. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. A very mysterious and powerful merchant. The reason why I can compete with you is all thanks to him. Yi Xinlan looked at Chu Bei's back, her face full of admiration. As for his background, I don't know either. If you want to know more about him, you can go to the All Heavens shop in Tianhuang City. Tianhuang City? All Heavens shop? Chao Ying, White Eagle, and the others looked at each other and made a mental note. Mugu, stop fighting with that guy. Let's work together to solve our problems first. One of the Soul Palace's three honorable elders shouted at old Mugu, who was in the midst of an intense battle with Elder Sheng Yao. Old Mugu first glanced at Chu Bei when he heard that. Then, his gaze swept past the three heavily injured honorable elders. After frowning, he immediately broke away from Sheng Yao's battle and flew to the side of the three honorable elders. Sir, you can leave Mugu to me. Elder Sheng Yao's gaze landed on Chu Bei as he locked onto old Mugu. According to the order, it should be my turn to attempt to subdue the 3,000 burning flame, right? Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Sheng Yao. Logically speaking, that should be the case, but Elder Sheng Yao stuttered. He did not know how to respond for a moment. According to the order of the quota, it should indeed be Chu Bei's turn to subdue the 3,000 burning flame. However, in reality, he had never expected that the strength of this last person would be on a completely different level from the previous 9 people. In fact, it was even far above his own. Chu Bei ignored Elder Sheng Yao. His gaze continued to land on the 4 honorable elders of the Soul Palace. The corners of his mouth were lifted into an arc. There is not much time left. If we delay any longer, those old fellows from the Pill Tower will enter. Sensing that the seal on the star-field's spatial wall had begun to loosen, one of the Soul Palace's honorable elders had a grave expression. In that case, let's deal with this fellow first before subduing the 3,000 burning flame, another honorable elder said. Their plan was perfect. However, they did not expect a variable to appear just as they were about to subdue the 3,000 burning flame. Origin Soul Chains, return. The 4 honorable elders of the Soul Palace exchanged glances before shouting at the same time. Immediately, the 4 chains binding the 3,000 burning flame returned to the backs of the 4 honorable elders. Black fog lingered around them, giving off an extremely horrifying aura. Without the restraints of the 4 origin soul chains, the 3,000 burning flame started to struggle frantically again. The fierce purple-black flames burned, and its body gradually recovered. Right now, it only wanted to struggle free of the 10,000 souls devouring formation and immediately flee. The 4 honorable elders of the Soul Palace already made it feel dangerous. Now, an even more troublesome fellow had appeared. If it continued to remain here, it would not be able to escape the fate of being subdued, regardless of who obtained it in the end. Sir, I can deal with one person, Elder Shangyao spoke again. Just bring these little fellows away from the battlefield. As for the four of them, they are not worth my attention. Chu Bei's voice was indifferent, as if he was at ease. Elder Shangyao hesitated for a moment before saying, "Then we will do as you say. I will watch from afar. If necessary, I will join the battlefield at any time." After saying that, Elder Shangyao turned around and led Chaoying, Yi Xinlan, and the other eight into the distance. In an instant, only Chu Bei, the four honorable elders of the Soul Palace surrounding Chu Bei, and the struggling 3,000 burning flame were left on the battlefield. Formed the origin soul chains. The four honorable elders of the Soul Palace shouted as they formed hand seals. As the hand seals were formed, the enormous origin soul chains behind the four honorable elders started to shake. The frequency was surprisingly high. As the chains shook, the space that was originally covered in ice was once again filled with black fog. The various souls in the black fog let out shrill cries that made one's scalp numb. In the next moment, under the control of the four honorable elders, the four origin soul chains attacked Chu Bei from four directions at the same time like dragons coming out of their caves. Facing the four origin soul chains that were clearly much stronger, Chu Bei still did not dodge. There was no trace of panic on his face. Just as the ends of the four origin soul chains were about to reach him, Chu Bei's body shook slightly. In an instant, the temperature of the space dropped by another level. Then, countless snowflakes flew out of Chu Bei's body and spread in all directions. These snowflakes were not fast, but strangely, every snowflake that landed on the origin soul chains of the four honorable elders would slow down. As more and more snowflakes landed on them, the four origin soul chains finally stopped when they were less than a meter away from Chu Bei. They could not move forward anymore. Damn it! What did he do to our origin soul chains? It was also at this moment that the expressions of the four honorable elders changed. They were actually unable to control their origin soul chains. This feeling was as if the origin soul chains were no longer a part of them. However, soon after, they felt a bone-piercing chill enter the depths of their souls. It was as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. This freezing feeling was transmitted from the origin soul chains. Gradually, the four honorable elders began to tremble involuntarily. Threads of cold air began to spread from their bodies. No, fear began to appear on the faces of the four honorable elders. The circulating do qi in their bodies began to stagnate. Their limbs also became stiff, and they were gradually unable to move. The four of them could only watch as more and more ice crystals appeared on the surface of their bodies until they formed a block of ice that completely enveloped them. Chu Bei ignored the frozen four honorable elders. He took a step forward and appeared in front of the origin soul chains that were covered in snowflakes. As Chu Bei's right hand was placed on the origin soul chains, the latter appeared to have suddenly suffered a heavy blow. The chains began to spread upward, shattering inch by inch. Almost at the same time, the face of the honorable elder connected to the origin soul chains turned pale. His aura became extremely weak. Under the horrified gazes of Mu Gu and the other two, Chu Bei appeared in front of the other three origin soul chains. The results were the same. Seeing the origin soul chains of the four honorable elders being destroyed, Elder Shengyao in the distance led Chaoying and the others back to the battlefield. To the honorable elders of Hall of Souls, the origin soul chains were a part of them. The destruction of the origin soul chains was equivalent to a fatal injury. Even if the four of them were not frozen, Shang Yao was currently unafraid. "I will leave these four to your Hall of Souls." Chu Bei glanced at the four honorable elders of Hall of Souls. Then, he pointed at the struggling 3,000 burning flame not far away and said, "As for it, it belongs to me." Hearing Chu Bei's indifferent words, Elder Sheng Yao was unable to reply. However, the enormous 3,000 burning flame could not help but shiver. When it saw Chu Bei deal with the four honorable elders of Hall of Souls, it knew that it could not escape this calamity. After all, the other party did not even care about the origin soul chains that suppressed it, let alone the 3,000 burning flame. "Little fellow, are you going to surrender yourself? Or do you want me to do it? Chu Bei flew to the front of the 3,000 burning flames giant head, the corners of his mouth raised into a smile. Can you give me some time to think about it? The 3,000 burning flames' enormous eyes had a hint of pleading. However, if one looked closely, they would be able to see a flash of cunning. Chu Bei naturally understood the 3,000 burning flames' intentions. It wanted to buy some time to escape from the 10,000 souls devouring array. Chu Bei did not point it out. He placed his hands behind his back and quietly looked at the 3,000 burning flame. 3 minutes later, joy surged in the 3,000 burning flames' enormous eyes. Then, with a dragon roar, the purple-black flames in its enormous mouth spat at Chu Bei. At almost the same time, the 10,000 souls devouring array around its body completely shattered. Within the raging sea of flames, a layer of ice appeared on the surface of Chu Bei's body. The surrounding purple-black flames were unable to enter. Seeing this, the 3,000 burning flame was not surprised. It did not expect its flames to be able to hurt the person in front of it. It only wanted to buy some time to escape. Without any hesitation, the 3,000 burning flame turned around and fled into the void. Chapter 135. Is this your reply to me? Chu Bei looked ahead calmly. As he spoke with a smile, he stretched out his right hand and suddenly clenched it. Suddenly, the space in the distance distorted. Dense ice crystals quickly formed and turned into a huge ice prison. There was a huge figure in the prison. It was the 3,000 burning flame that had escaped into the void. Under Chu Bei's control, the huge ice prison trapped the 3,000 burning flame and returned to Chu Bei. After spitting out purplish-black flames, the 3,000 burning flame realized that it had no effect on the surrounding ice walls. It simply gave up struggling and looked at Chu Bei with a fawning expression. Chu Bei glanced at the 3,000 burning flame indifferently. He ignored the other party's pleading gaze and waved his sleeve. Buzz. With a trembling sound, a golden disc appeared out of thin air. There was a black vortex in the center of the disc. What is this? Looking at the vortex in the disc, a trace of fear appeared in the 3,000 burning flame's huge eyes. Its intuition told it that this thing was very dangerous. Chu Bei did not answer the 3,000 burning flames question. He only smiled warmly at the latter. Seeing Chu Bei's smile, the 3,000 burning flame's huge body inexplicably shuddered. At this moment, a strange black light surged out of the black vortex in the center of the disc like a river and swept toward it. The 3,000 burning flame's pupil shrank as if it had sensed danger. It frantically struggled, trying to break out of the ice prison. However, the ice prison was very sturdy. The flames it spat out had no effect on the former at all. It was only when the black light surging out of the vortex completely wrapped around the ice prison that the ice prison broke on its own. At this moment, the 3,000 burning flame was completely enveloped by the black light. In an instant, the 3,000 burning flame stopped struggling. It was as if its consciousness had been taken away by the black light. It was motionless. In the end, under countless shocked gazes, the 3,000 burning flame's body kept shrinking. In the end, it was taken away by the black light and returned to the vortex in the center of the disc and disappeared. Host has received the 3,000 burning flame. Reward one-time use of a low-grade grade 10 commodity. Reward 2 million willpower points. The system's voice rang in Chu Bei's mind on time. At the same time, in the outside world, where did the 3,000 burning flame go? Has it already been subdued? It can't be, right? That's a heavenly flame that has already developed intelligence. Moreover, it's an existence that's ranked 9th on the deviant flame rankings. How could it be subdued so easily? Didn't you see it being swallowed by the disc? If this doesn't count as subduing, then what does? On the field, the group of powerhouses from the city of alchemy witnessed this, and their eyes widened in disbelief. Xin Kongzi, Xin Yi, and Tian Lei also had stunned expressions. Clearly, they had not expected the 3,000 burning flame to be unable to resist Chu Bei at all. However, compared to before, Since Chu Bei had resolved the crisis by freezing the 4 venerable ones, the 3 of them looked much more relaxed. Is this a success? Elder Shangyao muttered to himself as he watched the 3,000 burning flames disappear. After subduing the 3,000 burning flame, Chu Bei glanced at the strange seal made by Seoul Hall on the space boundary of the star area and waved his right hand. The snowflakes that filled the sky danced and adhered to the Seoul Palace seal. Crack, crack. Accompanied by a clear sound, the seal began to loosen. Xian Kongzi and the other 2 outside sensed this and exchanged glances before increasing the speed of their hand seals. Attacked from both inside and outside, after another 7 or 8 minutes, the silver door opened with a loud rumble. The seal made by Seoul Hall on the space boundary collapsed and shattered. You all continue to maintain the stability of the star area. I will go in and bring them all out. Xian Kongzi looked at Xin Yi and Tian Lazy before he walked into the silver gate. 3 minutes later, Chu Bei's group flew out of the silver door. Xian Kongzi used his vast and mighty Do Qi to support the ice that sealed the 4 venerable ones from the Seoul Hall and flew out. Many thanks to you this time. May I know if you can tell us your origins? Xian Kongzi cupped his hands towards Chu Bei. Even with his strength, he was unable to determine the other party's cultivation. Consider this 3,000 burning flame as a reward. Chu Bei replied indifferently, As for my origins, I am just a merchant. If you need anything, you can go to Tianhuang City's All Heavens shop. Chu Bei's figure flickered and appeared beside Qing Lin and Little Doctor. This matter is over. We should return. Under the gazes of countless people, Chu Bei waved his hand and a dazzling formation appeared under his feet. The formation flickered and Chu Bei, Qing Lin, He Qing, Tang Hua and the others disappeared. Tianhuang City, above the Bluestone Plaza. A ripple appeared in the void and a formation appeared within the ripple. Chu Bei's group slowly descended into the All Heavens shop below. Boss Chu, I will take my leave first. Once she landed, Tang Hua bowed towards Chu Bei. After the other party nodded, she flew towards the burning flame valley. Boss, I thought about it and decided to go back to the clan with Uncle He Qing first. Speaking up to this point, little Ziyin rolled her big eyes and said, Boss, do you have any treasures that can contact you immediately? If I run into trouble on Dragon Island, I can still rely on you. Chu Bei glanced at little Ziyin and took out a level 5 lucky wheel. He said, There is a sound transmission stone that can contact me? What a stingy boss. You can't even give me one. Little Ziyin made a face at Chu Bei and reluctantly spun the lucky wheel. After she spun the sound transmission stone and learned how to use it, little Ziyin broke through the void and left under He Qing's coaxing. After Ziyin and He Qing left, only Chu Bei, Little Doctor, and Qing Lin were left in the huge All Heavens shop. After Little Doctor and Qing Lin started to get busy, Chu Bei used the 2 million willpower points rewarded by the system to increase his cultivation. He broke through from a 5-star Do Zune to a 6-star Do Zune. Within 7 days, the host must adapt and stabilize his current cultivation. During this period, no goods are to be sold. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded. Chu Bei was stunned. This was the second time he heard this voice. Burning Fire Mountain Range, Burning Flame Valley. Once Tang Hua returned to Burning Flame Valley, she flew straight to a fiery red hall in the depths. Daddy, I'm back. Once Tang Hua entered the hall, she playfully stuck out her tongue at Tang Zhen, who was sitting at the head of the table. Did you come back because you were tired from playing? Tang Zhen stared at Tang Hua with some affection. Daddy, I really didn't go to play this time. I saw Boss Chu make a move. Tang Hua cleared her throat and hurriedly brought out the itinerary. Especially the process of Chu Bei defeating the 4 honorable elders of the Hall of War Spirits and subduing the 3,000 burning flame. He cultivates ice attribute Do Qi. After hearing Tang Hua's narration, Tang Jin and the other elders in the hall were stunned. With his own strength, he easily defeated the combined attack of the 4 honorable elders of the Hall of War Spirits and easily subdued the 3,000 burning flame. This kind of cultivation strength was at least 9 stars Do Zune. Tang Hua shook her head. It's hard to say. Although he used ice attribute attacks, It was said that there were no do qi fluctuations. It was very strange. Hearing this, Tang Zhan and the others had some bewilderment and curiosity in their eyes. The next day, Tang Zhen, Tang Huer, Yi Zhong, Yi Xinlan and the others came to the All-Heavens shop one after another, but they were all sent away by Chu Bei. In the next 2 days, Chu Bei directly closed the door of the mansion and immersed himself in stabilizing his cultivation. While Chu Bei was in seclusion, the entire central province was in an uproar because of the news of the ancient ruins. Early morning of the 5th day, 3 figures walked out of the spatial wormhole on the Bluestone Plaza. It should be here. The 3 figures looked at the mansion not far away at the same time and walked over. Because everyone in the city knew that Chu Bei wasn't receiving guests recently and they were in awe of him, the front of the mansion was empty. Boss Chu opened the door. After the 3 figures arrived in front of the mansion, one of the young men shouted loudly. Creak. The door that had been closed for several days slowly opened after the young man shouted. Although it's not as big as my Shao mansion, it's far more elegant. Looking at the lotus pond and rockery in the mansion, the young man sighed. Young Master Shao Yin, so it's you. No wonder the boss opened the door. Recognizing the person, the little doctor and Qing Lin's confusion disappeared. However, when they saw the 2 old men behind Shao Yin, a surprised expression appeared on their faces. Xingyun Ji's venerable Feng. It's the soul in the ring. The little doctor and Qing Lin cried out in surprise. One of the old men was Venerable Feng, whom they had met in the Tianmu mountain range. The other old man was the soul that they had seen floating out of Shao Yan's ring in Wutan City. The difference was that this soul had flesh and blood and had become a real living person. How did you find this place? Chu Bei walked out of the hall with a smile on his face. Boss Chu, you're now famous in Central Province. This was especially true in Pill City, where everyone knew about it. With the information I have in Xingyun Gu, it's not difficult for me to find your location. Yao Chen cupped his fists at Chu Bei. Boss Chu, I didn't expect you to know old Yao long ago, and even give him such a great opportunity. Feng Zunjia took a step forward and looked at Chu Bei with a gaze that was filled with respect and gratitude. He had been friends with Yao Chen for many years, and had once thought that Yao Chen was no longer in the world. He had investigated for many years just to avenge Yao Chen. Unexpectedly, Yao Chen had suddenly returned to Xingyun Gu recently. After understanding, he found out that Yao Chen had been killed by his disciple, Han Feng. As for Han Feng, he had also been killed by Chu Bei. That was a deal. I didn't give it to him, Chu Bei said calmly. When they arrived at the hall, Shao Yin and Yao Chen's eyes were instantly attracted by the neat row of containers. Boss Chu, these treasures are clearly priced. Does that mean that we can buy them directly if we pay? Venerable Feng stopped in front of container number 8 and stared at one of the treasures with a burning gaze. He was obviously tempted. Chu Bei nodded and said, although you can buy it directly, it's not open for business for the time being. Venerable Feng was slightly stunned and asked doubtfully, why is that? There's no reason for it to be closed when it's open. Chu Bei replied casually and said, if there's really something you like, you can buy it in 2 days. All right, that's the only way. Venerable Feng reluctantly moved his gaze away from the treasures that he was tempted by. There was no displeasure on his face. Boss Chu, are you interested in the primordial ruins? At this moment, Shao Yin could not help but ask. His eyes were filled with curiosity. Primordial ruins? Chu Bei frowned slightly. Boss Chu, don't tell me you don't know. Shao Yan's expression became strange. Chu Bei did not speak. He calmly looked at Shao Yin. The hottest topic in the central province these days is the primordial ruins. Shao Yin organized his thoughts and said, it's said that the primordial ruins were left behind by a Do Sheng. It contains a large amount of treasures and even Tian rank Do skills. However, the primordial ruins are located in the Beast region. Once it's completely opened, the magical Beast clan's experts will definitely want to get involved. After listening to Shao Yan's explanation, Yao Chen couldn't help but sigh. I'm afraid the primordial ruins this time will be the same as what we experienced back then. Rivers of blood will flow, and countless Do Zongs and Do Zuns will fall. Old Yao, you were the winner of that battle back then. The flame technique is a good thing. Venerable Feng glanced at Yao Chun. Unlike me, who only obtained an Earth-rank Do skill, system has begun recycling for the host. Current location, Primordial Ruins, wish limit, 5 million. Just as Chu Bei was hesitating about whether or not he should join in on the fun, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Chu Bei was startled. After regaining his wits, he hurriedly checked the system's interface. A new page had appeared on the system's interface. It introduced the recycling function. After Chu Bei skimmed through the introduction, the corners of his mouth involuntarily curled up. This so-called function was actually one of the system's benefits. At the system's designated location, as long as there was something of value, he could turn it over to the system and obtain wish points. Of course, the amount of wish points awarded was entirely up to the system's discretion. It wasn't necessarily the value of the treasure itself. Boss Chu, why don't we go take a look at the primordial ruins? Perhaps there will be treasures that will catch your eye. Xiaoyan patiently and methodically guided him. Yao Chen and Venerable Feng also looked at Chu Bei with anticipation. The appearance of the primordial ruins was something that even Do Zuns would scramble for. If they had this seemingly bottomless Boss Chu with them, their danger would undoubtedly be much lower. Even if the other party ate the meat and they drank the soup, it would still be good. Since you have all invited me like this, wouldn't I be too unreasonable if I don't go? Chu Bei's face carried a smile. The meaning behind his words was obvious. Hearing this, Xiaoyan, Yao Chun, and Venerable Feng looked at each other. Joy could be seen in each of their eyes. Do the two of you want to come along? Chu Bei looked at Qing Lin and Little Doctor. Now, no matter where he went, he wanted to bring the two of them along. After all, the two of them were the people who had spent the most time with him ever since he had transmigrated. As the saying goes, affection grows with time. Boss, will we be a burden to you? Qing Lin and Little Doctor looked at each other. At the same time, they were looking forward to it. At the same time, they were also worried. Do you not believe in your boss's ability? Chu Bei's gaze swept across Qing Lin and Little Doctor. Boss, please bring us along. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Qing Lin and Little Doctor's expressions became excited. Chapter 136. The blue sky was cloudless for thousands of miles. An enormous black shadow flashed across the distant sky, distorting the space behind it. It was a large, disc-shaped object that was heading toward the beast region. Old Yao, since we still have time, why don't you tell me about the beast region in detail? Xiaoyan propped up his chin and looked at Yao Chun with great confidence. Yao Chun glanced at Xiaoyan and said, the beast region is home to nearly 70% of the magical beast clans on the Do-Chi continent. It can be said to be the territory of the magical beasts. 2 of the 3 overlords of the magical beast world live there, the Heaven Demon Phoenix clan and the 9 Abyss Deep Ground Python. A few years ago, I had some dealings with the Heaven Demon Phoenix clan. They have as many experts as the clouds and are extremely terrifying. Even though I had already advanced to the Do Zun class back then, I had no choice but to retreat when facing them. Yao Chen's expression gradually turned serious. He recalled the past and said, the 9 Abyss Deep Ground Python clan has the most subordinate clans in the Beast region. Their numbers are also the largest among the 3 Overlord clans. Of course, the consequence of this is that the 9 Abyss Deep Ground Python clan's bloodline is getting worse with each generation and is becoming less pure. What about the ancient Void Dragon clan? Xiaoyan took the initiative to ask when Yao Chen paused. This clan is the most mysterious. Even I have never had any dealings with them, much less understand them. I have never heard of them having subordinate clans. However, I can be sure that this clan is stronger than the Heaven Demon Phoenix clan and the 9 Abyss Deep Ground Python clan. Yao Chen looked at Chu Bei. Boss Chu, you should have some understanding of them. Chu Bei smiled and said, do you remember little Ziyin from the inner court of Canaan? That's right. Why don't I see her? Where did she go? Confusion appeared in Xiaoyan's eyes when he heard Chu Bei's words. He remembered that Ziyin had followed Chu Bei to the central province. However, he hadn't seen her in the All Heavens shop. She is an ancient void dragon. She has already returned with her clan's elders, Chu Bei said. What? She's an ancient void dragon. Xiao Yan's mouth gaped open, but he quickly regained his composure. After learning that little Ziyin was an ancient void dragon and recalling her freakish abilities and physique, everything made sense. Where is the residence of the ancient void dragon clan? Xiaoyan thought of another question. You will have a chance to go there in the future. As they chatted, the meteorite carrying Chu Bei and the others pierced through space and arrived in the air above the Beast region. Although the Beast region wasn't as large as the Central Plains, it still couldn't be underestimated. There was no end to the mountain range, and the paths of magical beasts could be seen everywhere. The Skeletal Mountain Range was located southwest of the Beast region. It was also where the ancient ruins were located. This mountain range was quite famous in the Beast region because of the frightening sea of skeletons. Countless beast skeletons were thrown here. As time passed, the beast power contained in these beast skeletons was released and gathered here. Although this energy was useless to humans, it was a great supplement to magical beasts. As such, the Skeletal Mountain Range was a favorite gathering place for many magical beasts. As news of the ancient ruins spread, the Beast region became extremely lively. In addition to powerful magical beasts that could take human form, there were also many powerful human cultivators from the Central Plains. Boss Chu, the Skeletal Mountain Range is up ahead. After flying for a few more minutes, Venerable Wind pointed out the window at the White Mountain Range not far away. From time to time, there would be a figure flying over the White Mountain Range, heading deeper into the mountain range. After arriving above the Skeletal Mountain Range, Chu Bei put away the meteorite ship. After all, the ship was too eye-catching. He didn't want to become the target of public criticism so soon. Boss Chu, let me contact the people from Xinyangu first. Venerable Wind cupped his fists toward Chu Bei, then took out an ancient jade from his storage ring and crushed it. Moments later, a figure quickly flew over from the depths of the Skeletal Mountain Range. Judging from his aura, he was a 7-star Dozong. Pavilion Master, you're finally here. Upon seeing Venerable Wind and Yao Chun, the person who rushed over had an extremely respectful expression. Which forces do you know have arrived? Venerable Wind asked. The Wind Thunder Pavilion, Huangquan Pavilion, Wanjin Pavilion, Ice River Valley, Burning Flame Valley, and Sound Valley are all here. The person who rushed over had a serious expression. I heard that the Hall of Souls is also on the move, but I haven't seen them yet. I understand. Venerable Wind nodded, then glanced at Chu Bei and flew in front to lead the way. Very quickly, Chu Bei and the others arrived at a mountain peak that reached into the clouds. In front of the mountain peak was an extremely large basin. From afar, the basin was surrounded by a sea of white bones. It gave people a bone-chilling feeling. As for the inner area, it was covered by a hazy white fog, making it hard to see clearly. Densely packed figures stood around the basin. Numerous heated gazes were staring intently at the distorted space above the sea of white bones. It was this distorted space that gave rise to a large amount of hazy white fog that covered the ancient remains. There was no doubt that once the seal of the ancient remains disappeared and was completely opened, the sea of people around the basin would continuously surge in like waves. Chu Bei merely swept his gaze across one direction and captured the powerful auras of 6 Dozuns. The number of Dozuns this time is much more than the last time dozens of years ago. Die. Many of those old fellows who have hidden themselves from the world and are waiting to die have come. Yao Chun and Venerable Wind seem to have seen some familiar faces as they sighed one after another. The more experts there were, the higher the danger. Just imagine, even if one obtained a treasure in the remains, one would still have to deal with other experts fighting for it. Once one's strength was insufficient, one would have to give it up. Under Venerable Wind's lead, Chu Bei landed in the area where Xingyun was located. Quick, look in the direction of Xingyun. Who is the person beside Venerable Wind? He seems a little familiar. It's Yao Zun, the true pavilion master of Xingyun. He's actually still alive. Wasn't it rumored that he was already dead? The experts who were closer to Xingyun were shocked when they recognized Yao Chun. Boss Chu is also here. Why is he with someone from the Falling Star Pavilion? Could he be one of Xingyun Ji's people? How is that possible? Haven't you heard about what happened in Dan City? Boss Chu's strength is at least above an 8-star Do Zun. How can Xingyun Go tolerate such a great Buddha? Some of the experts who had seen Chu Bei were also discussing and guessing the relationship between Chu Bei and Xingyun Ge. Buzz, buzz, buzz. About an hour later, a strange buzzing sound suddenly sounded in the sky above the basin. Hearing the sound, the densely packed figures around the basin all looked at the distorted space above the sea of bones. The distorted space began to ripple and the fluctuations became more and more intense. The ancient ruins are about to be completely revealed. It's finally here. Sensing that the energy seal was getting weaker and weaker, the eyes of the countless experts around the basin lit up with a blazing light, and their expressions became excited. Chu Bei looked at the distorted space calmly. He could feel a manic energy fluctuating in it. The energy gave him the feeling that it was like a volcano that had been suppressed under the Earth's crust, waiting for the opportunity to erupt. Crack. Under countless expectant gazes, cracks began to appear in the distorted space above the basin. Then, like fragile glass, it suddenly burst into countless tiny fragments. The ancient ruins have opened. Charge. The opportunity is right in front of us. The moment the energy seal disappeared, the figures around the basin shouted excitedly. Then, one by one, they flew toward the sea of bones in the basin. Compared to these experts who were defenseless, those who had some understanding of the ancient ruins retreated immediately. At the same time, they covered their bodies with fighting energy. Do these guys really think that the ancient ruins only have opportunities and no danger? Just as Feng Zunjia was shaking his head and sighing, the distorted space that had already exploded suddenly emitted a loud sound. In the next moment, a violent spatial energy swept out like a storm. Those practitioners who rushed forward were almost instantly swallowed by the storm. Then, there were shrill screams that sounded one after another above the sea of bones. The energy storm that carried spatial energy harvested the frontmost experts like harvesting wheat. Even though some high-level dozongs were able to escape successfully, they were seriously injured and extremely weak. When the spatial storm subsided, the periphery of the sea of bones was dyed red with blood. A large number of broken limbs were a ghastly sight. Fortunately, we were not in a hurry. Those who did not immediately rush forward and escaped by luck all let out a long sigh and secretly rejoiced. After witnessing the scene just now, the excitement on the faces of the experts around the basin was clearly reduced by a lot, until a long time later, when they were sure that the remnant energy of the seal had disappeared. The experts flew into the sea of bones one after another. The sea of bones was extremely vast. After the energy seal disappeared, the hazy and rumbling fog also began to dissipate. Gradually, everything in the sea of bones became clear. In the center, there was an incomparably huge crimson palace. Strange energy ripples could be faintly seen in the space around the palace. Of course, other than the most eye-catching crimson palace, there were hundreds of large and small buildings of different sizes scattered around the ruins. It was also because of this that the experts around the basin, who were originally densely packed together, flew into the sea of bones and quickly spread out to search for opportunities. Although they all knew that the best treasure was in the Crimson Palace, they were definitely not the ones who could take the treasure out of the palace and successfully escape. As such, the most correct thing for them to do was to give up on the Crimson Palace and search for opportunities in other places. Boss Chu, are we flying straight to that palace? Venerable Wind stretched out his hand and pointed at the Crimson Palace in the center. Of course. Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. After saying that, Chu Bei carried Qing Lin and the little doctor and directly rushed towards the Crimson Palace. Seeing this, Venerable Wind, Yao Chun, and Xiao Yin immediately followed. When they were about halfway, Chu Bei suddenly stopped. Boss Chu, what's wrong? Xiao Yin looked puzzled. Chu Bei did not say anything and only pointed below. Directly below them, there was a lake that was about 10 feet wide. The lake looked unusually clear, but they could not see the bottom. In the center of the lake, There was a floating piece of land that looked like a small island in the middle of the lake. On the small island, there was an extremely strange-looking small tree. Everyone, for the sake of the 10,000 updates per day, if you have a monthly vote, please vote for us. Thank you very much. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.